Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
would not avail myself of
Good
telehealth
evening.
unless I knew.
Welcome to the
Because that's
November
been so much time on
14th,
computers.
2024 meeting of the Exeter Budget Recommendations Committee. This evening we'll be discussing the capital improvements program requests and vehicles that the various departments have requested. We'll begin with names of attendees and other interested parties. I am Bob Kelly, the chair of the committee, and the chair of the Water and Sewer and Public Works Subcommittee. Andrew?
Yep, I'm Andrew Elliott. I'm on the DPW General Subcommittee, and I'm talking into the mic for you, Judy.
Sorry.
So you can hear me. Can you hear me?
I can't.
You can't hear me?
Nope.
How about now?
That just goes to the...
Nope, still can't, nothing? All right, I'll yell real loud.
There you go.
There you go.
I can get angry.
You were using.
I'm
the
Fran
TJ
Hall,
list.
and I'm a member of the Water and Sewer Committee.
Evening, everybody. Corey Stevens, Finance Director.
Melissa Roy, Assistant Town Manager.
Russell Dean, Town Manager.
Don Cloutier, Police and Fire Subcommittee.
Anthony Zwan, 7 Marlborough Street, on the, what am I on? Water and Sewer Subcommittee.
Judy Rowan, Police and Fire Chair, Subcommittee.
David Kovar, Police and Fire Subcommittee.
Anna Grazer, General Government Chair Subcommittee.
Christopher Zigmont, Crestview Drive, and I'm on the General Government Subcommittee.
Amanda Kelly, DPW, both subcommittees, and general government.
Thank you. And off mic, we have with us members of the Select Board, the Chair Nico Papakas-Santis, Nancy Belanger, and staff members Greg Bisson from Parks and Rec, Steve Cronin from Public Works, and Kristen Murphy, our Sustainability Planning Coordinator. What? Sure. Okay, so there's no specific tab in the budget book for the CIP items. I put together a little bit of a cheat sheet so we could follow along to the music. Just a general description of some of the items begins in the budget book, the pre-1 tab, so it'd be on page 20 and 21, which are the bond articles, warrant articles, and the recommended fund balance funding from the management team that we will be discussing. And then a couple of pages beyond that are the warrant articles for the water and sewer departments. So we'll start at the top in the CIP book, beginning on page 2, which is the Public Works Fuel Island. Again, hopefully, I'm not going to read the narratives here. Hopefully, you've had a chance to go through them. This is, in a nutshell, a proposed relocation of the existing fuel island, which has been around for a number of years. It's sort of at the entry to the whole Public Works facility. Can be subject to some traffic jams and a lot of comings and goings of various sizes of equipment and trucks, as well as personal vehicles. So we're going to be looking at relocating that. Any questions before we've got maybe a brief statement from Steve? But does anybody have any questions on what exactly this is about? We've described it in the general DPW write-up, as well as water and sewer, to give you an idea what's going on. Steve, any more? Oh, sorry, Fran.
Oh, no, I was just following. I just have a question. Does this total price include any hazardous waste removal and that kind of thing?
Yes, it includes removal of the existing system, the tanks, all the equipment, and replacement.
So you know everything that's there that you're going to deal with? Okay.
Tom?
Yes, it's Steve, right? Oh, here. Yeah, I couldn't see. Remind us what the age of this thing is? I don't think it's in the write-up, unless, if it is, I don't see it right now.
I actually don't have it in the write-up. I believe it's close to 30 years old.
Correct.
Memory serves.
it's obsolete, right?
It is, yes.
Yeah.
So the electronics as well as the pumps are well past their intended life. As part of the replacement, we're going to be incorporating some new tracking systems that can be used with our vehicles to monitor inventories as well as, when vehicles are filling up, mileage, things to that effect. It would interface with our existing GIS and work order systems.
Do you have something? Don?
The tanks are metal now.
Pass it.
The underground tanks, I believe, are either metal or concrete.
They haven't leaked yet.
No, they are tested routinely.
Yeah, we have them tightness tested every year. They're registered. Chris?
At the high level, I don't have any challenge to what's in the CIP, and it all makes perfect sense. I guess my question would be one step either above or beyond that. If we have this great opportunity to remove tanks and get out of the tank business, have we done the cost analysis of partnering with people that already are in this business, like gas stations, and making a municipal contract with that? And how does that look in the long run? And so we can kind of get out of the fuel storage business.
Yep, I don't have the figures in front of me, but we have looked at that. So we pay wholesale under a state bid contract. If we were to use existing retail stations, we'd be paying a retail price. Part of, the benefit of having this system is that it's available to us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So during emergencies, snow and ice removal, we have everything that's available to us. It's connected to our emergency generator as well. So if there were, long-term power outages, again, we'd still have the benefit of having our own fuel source. So, it's for efficiency's sake as well. We're not waiting in long lines at stations and things like that and trying to coordinate our operation around when they're open.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
We did look at that back in the 2000s, and that was like the number one reason to keep it going, because of basically snow emergencies. You're trying to fill up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and most of the gas stations are, they're either, their power is down or they're not open or both.
Fair enough.
So.
Great.
And you're also fueling like ladder trucks, right? Things like that? Or no?
Correct,
Yeah.
yes. Yep,
A
the
little
town's
bit of
entire
everything.
Pull into
fleet.
your Shell station with a ladder truck.
That depends how good the driver is.
Okay, so the financing on this, at least projections by the executive team, would be a 5-year bond. Total of the $575,000, approximately $128,000 on an average basis for 5 years. The financing would not begin until, the payback would not begin until FY26. So we would be not bonding this until next year, and the first payment would be in 2026. It would have tax impacts. Any further comments? I would entertain a motion to approve this project.
I'll move that. Swan.
Second.
Second by Judy. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Okay, second item is on page 4. Transfer station improvements. The upshot of this is that the existing transfer station was built on a corner of the old landfill when it was closed several decades ago. And the town has grown pretty significantly in that time. We've recycled more materials. We have the clothing and book drop-off areas there. We have a pretty extensive leaf drop-off area that's accessed off of that main service area. We've now built the solar panel array on top of the landfill, so we don't really have a lot of flexibility on altering that site. So I think the plan here is to reorient portions in the flow of traffic and all of that. Is that a? a reasonable summary?
Yeah, that's
Is there-
correct.
is
I
some-
mean, really, it's twofold. One was, we had received some comments from sustainability regarding the efficiency of the operation, safety concerns, the ability to support some additional programs like composting and things like that, as well as the proposed styrofoam recycling unit. So, we looked at some opportunities to, improve circulation through the site and support that as well. And, this would include paving the entire site, relocating, cardboard disposal and construction debris disposal, widening the entrance, some increased signage, things to that effect.
Do we have a rough plan at all, or are we sort of, is that what this is going to fund, hiring someone and actually do a plan, or have we?
No, we have a small site plan that we've put together. We're not talking about large changes. It's really some minor relocation of existing storage, existing disposal bins, paving the site, putting a concrete pad for compost, things like that.
Down below, or for
No,
the finished material? So instead of just being in a bin, it would actually have a non-contaminated area. that
Correct,
you could
yes.
get to.
Yep, yeah, I mean, I think we envision, some of this work being done by Public Works, Highway in particular, like painting pavement markings and installing signage and things like that. A good portion of the cost would be for paving of the transfer station site itself.
If Public Works is doing this work, does this cover their overtime?
No. So.
Okay. I mean, I know that you all are
Yeah.
struggling with staffing, so.
We are, yeah. I mean, it's, the pavement markings and sign installation are things that we do every day.
Okay.
It would be basically refreshing a lot of the stuff that's there, but just trying to improve the layout of the entire site.
Okay. And the paving and concrete pad would be done by somebody else?
Yeah, that would all be outsourced through
Okay.
either our paving contract or soliciting quotes.
So the stuff that you would be doing is just stuff that you can do fairly smoothly without.
That we
it-
typically do on an annual basis anyway.
Judy?
I just have a question about the timing of this. In a year when people's valuations have jumped up and a lot of people are reeling from shock, and we all anticipate our taxes will be going up, ours are going up over $2,000. Is this the year to be putting forward this particular item?
We tried to propose it along with the styrofoam recycling unit, hopefully, hoping that there'd be some economy of scale by doing the two projects together. It doesn't prevent us from proceeding with the styrofoam recycling unit independently. We could still do that, site it in the location that we want, and make improvements at a later date if that were the desire of the committee.
Andrew?
Just got one question about how the road is maintained now. Who does that, and what's the cost of that roughly?
We do that with the highway department, our in-house staff. It's a gravel site, so it's, grading with heavy equipment, basically.
Right.
We make spot repairs with, either recycled asphalt product that we have on hand or gravel that we process, so.
Because I mean, if the life cycle of pavement is not great, and so we're looking at doing this every 5-10 years.
I would
versus-
expect 15 to 20 years out of asphalt in this site where it's not it's not receiving daily truck traffic like a road or something to that effect.
Right. Okay.
All for putting the cement in the separate areas for the compost and the other materials. But the paving of the road going in and the general area, I can't see it lasting 20 years with the amount of vehicles,
Heavy vehicle.
especially in the summer, when you get vehicles that'll come in and they will end up turning in a spot, which basically digs a hole in the hot top. The dirt, it seems easy enough to maintain, in my opinion.
Part of the current setup there requires that people either pull in or back into the ramp where they're disposing of construction debris or cardboard. The reconfiguration would be more of a flow-through traffic pattern so that people are basically, navigating the site in a counterclockwise fashion. So try to limit the turning movements into traffic.
A lot of other transfer stations around the state have paved and then they have lanes, painted lanes. So if you go into this transfer station, it's the wild, wild west. I mean, a lot of times, people are pulling out to back in and you don't know they're doing that. My point is you can't paint gravel. And even though most of the time, like if you're there by yourself, it's a piece of cake. But there are, like especially Saturdays and on days when they're doing leaf drop-offs as well as other things, people are coming up the road from the leaf drop-off and going counter to traffic coming in. And so this would allow us, I understand what you're saying. I agree, the gravel seems to work most of the time. But having painted lanes and things like that and arrows and the ability to have signage, I think would, I don't know if we've ever had any accidents up there, but I know I've witnessed several near misses and it could be done better. The traffic flow could be done a lot better.
Mr. Chair.
Tom,
Sorry.
Tom was up.
No, I just want to be careful we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater on this one. The discussion on asphalt versus gravel is great, and it's a healthy discussion. I wouldn't want to see this project scuttled because we couldn't agree on that or we feel gravel's better. The layout and the reconfiguration is, I think, dramatically important for the growth of the town. The encouragement of things like composting and cardboard recycling and potentially other useful commodities and getting just the encouragement to have people go there and utilize it. And so I want to make sure that we, don't discourage a yes vote or support of this because we're worried about the surface.
Well, the surface is a large part of funding, so
Sure.
I think that's where the question is coming.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
How much of a part of the funding is the surface?
I think I don't have the estimate in front of me, but it was close to half the cost of the entire project.
Okay. And revitalizing it 15 years from now would be equally expensive?
No, because you'd be looking at
Just be an
probably,
overlay.
an overlay.
Okay, so it's a significant capital outlay initially, but 15 years lifespan is awfully good, at least compared to other roads, and updating it at some point would be a fraction of the initial outlay.
Correct.
Tom?
Yes, thank you. Initially, I was going to ask about the timing of discussing this versus the styrofoam recycling unit. You've kind of covered that. I assume from what you said that those can be considered separately and independently, i.e., if this somehow doesn't fly, but the styrofoam recycling unit, let's say, does, can you work around that?
Yeah, we would still be able to.
That's the first part of my question.
Yeah, we'd still be able to accommodate the styrofoam recycling.
Okay, because part of the pitch here is, the synergy of both, right? Doing both at the same time because they're both at the same site. But again, we don't know how the conversation about the styrofoam unit is going to play out yet. I'll tip my cards.
We will in a couple of minutes.
And we will in a couple of minutes, but we're going to go through this one first.
Well, what I was going to do is defer actual voting on this and after we were done, get into a discussion of the styrofoam unit so that they could be thought of and considered in conjunction.
So I would say that, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to do the site improvements ahead of the styrofoam recycling because there are going to be there's going to be some site work that has to happen. There's probably going to be some trenching for underground electrical and conduit and things like that. So you wouldn't want to pave the site and then cut into a newly paved site a year or two later to install.
Yeah, I got it. I'm going to tip my card slightly here. I'm surprised that this is coming. Like Judy, I'm surprised this is coming up this year. I haven't seen it in the CIP before. It's a tough year. I mean, I love to see improvements, but and I'm still undecided about the styrofoam for different reasons. But just giving you an early indication of my sentiments here.
Bob?
Andrew?
Just one question. I know the recycling facility does require a permit, and permits cost money.
Yep.
Can we maybe bill the people that are actually using the recycling center by increasing the cost of the permits? I mean, for a small fraction of the town that actually uses the recycling facility, we're asking everybody to pay for it, and I just don't know that I believe that's fair.
So I both agree and disagree. And the reason I agree is it's like sewer, for
Well,
example.
excuse me for just 1 second. So were you done with your
Yes,
comment?
I just wanted to see if there was a funding mechanism through the...
We hadn't discussed offsetting the cost with revenues at this point, no.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I agree, if we can have costs covered by the people using it, that works incredibly well. I think having recycling there does benefit the entire town in other ways, because, for example, the junk haulers that come by and pick up various things from people for a fee are using that site, and so the fact that the site's there allows them to do things like that, construction debris, things like that. Is also sort of the optics of it, and having the ability for the community to handle that sort of material locally instead of exporting our problems someplace else, essentially, I think is appealing. And I'll tip my hand, and particularly for things like the styrofoam. And I understand the two are not tied together. We can have one without the other, but I both agree and disagree. And if we can cover some of those costs by increasing those permits, speaking as somebody who has a permit, I'd be happy to pay an additional cost for that reason.
Did you have something, Chris?
Yeah, I just wanted to get a point of clarity from Andrew. When you used the broad term recycling, were you talking about all recycling, or were you speaking specifically about
The center. I was talking about the
transfer station? Okay.
Yeah, the transfer station because recycling is free, brush is free.
Okay.
Compost is free, Helpsy's free, and I do use those, but I don't pay for a permit because I don't use the other stuff. Right.
Understood.
And
So you are using the transfer station?
I am, yes.
Without paying for it.
Yes.
So we
I'm a
should be.
cheap man. That's why I'm on this budget committee, man. Like, this is what we're talking about.
But that illuminates something I hadn't considered, is that
Yeah.
there are people in town who are using that resource who are not paying for it.
Yep.
And
One of them.
Well, they are.
We're paid
They
taxes,
write a
yeah.
check for taxes every year.
exactly. So if you increase the dump permit that I'm paying for, and you don't increase the taxes where that other people are using the facility, then why am I paying additional for somebody else's benefit? I'm a liberal, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to be equitable about
You gotta
things.
think about it the other way. I'm actually saving you money by bringing those things there because we pay for the hauling costs, all of us, through the town.
Are you done, Dave?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Fran?
I'm not opposed to the idea of raising the fees, but I am opposed to doing it this year. And the reason is that, the reassessment has just had everybody spinning. And sometimes it's the smallest thing that just, makes the biggest difference. And a dump permit is a small thing. But, I think people would be up in arms if they said, I got this reassessment and now I got to deal with this, So I don't think this is the year to be raising fees.
Tom?
A couple of things. One is, I'll just admit that I didn't realize until this year how stupid I was. I'd been paying that damn fee, thinking that was sort of the entrance fee to the thing, and I didn't realize that all these other things didn't require the fee, and I'd gladly pay it.
Thank you.
It ties into my second, because it
Thank
ties
you for
in
your
with my
service.
second point, which is this. I actually, and I love the word dump, by the way. So I think it's a wonderful dump. When I think back on my childhood days
cleanest
in
dump I ever
Maine,
seen.
I think it's a wonderful transfer station as it is.
Yes, it is.
And Derby on Friday nights is fun as well. So a little bit of bumper cars isn't a horrible thing. So there, that's where I'm at right now.
If paving the site is dependent on the recycling unit going in first, that feels like an opportunity to defer making a decision on the redoing of the land till next year.
Yeah. I agree. They're
I
sort of they're intertwined, and we will be discussing them that way.
But I mean, we would have to.
But there are things that need to be done at the transfer station, irrespective of other
Right.
things that are added
The
on. So
styrofoam
that's why we're
recycling unit
discussing it
needs to have
first.
things done for it, but it feels to me like we can defer making a decision about redoing the site until next year after the styrofoam unit goes in, if it's going in. And I absolutely agree on the optics of doing this, and I have a similar concern about the EV charging station. So,
Okay, we're going to be discussing them all.
Yeah.
yep.
Don?
So the paving was half that 100,000? I'd be all for doing all the necessary work and we pave it next year, or.
Well, keep in mind, the paving includes reorienting the entrance. So there's more work to be done. It's not just going out, moving
I
everything
agree.
back and slabbing it up. It's reorienting the entrance, which will mean more road to be done. So it's not just the existing area. Yeah, that's an option.
Yeah, but that said, I guess to follow on what Don was saying, is it possible to look at this in a split format like that to do a large bit of the heavy lifting for reformatting and rearranging and getting the layout the way we want it, and move to putting asphalt down the following year?
We could look at some of those things, yes, yeah, so.
Anything else on the transfer station improvements? So what I would like to do is skip ahead a few items before we vote on that and talk about the styrofoam recycling unit, as it will be out there. There will be some reorientation of traffic flow and location of equipment and facilities, and to that extent, the two items are somewhat linked, and I'd like to have everyone get a full picture of what we're looking at for expenditures and plans before we vote. So the write-up for the styrofoam unit is on page 10 of the CIP book under the general fund. It's a fairly comprehensive write-up. Kristen has put together some additional information based on some questions from the committee, the subcommittee, and she is here with us tonight to give us, I think the way we'll do it is, why don't you sort of present your perspective, because I understand through Chris that the Sustainability Committee sort of brainstormed this, came up with it, went through you, came up with the plan and the CIP item and all that. So maybe walk us through that, while working in some of the answers from the questions that we asked, if you can. And don't worry, we'll prompt you if you miss something.
I might need some prompting for that, but so this was basically an opportunity. The Sustainability Advisory Committee this year has been focusing with concerns over waste diversion, basically. And this became an option. I had seen a presentation from Guilford. The Public Works Director had done a presentation on their styrofoam recycling. It seemed like a great opportunity, one, to take a very bulky item out of our current waste stream, something that, not only costs us money to dispose of, costs residents money in their blue bags, but also can be converted into a commodity that the town can use. So the beauty of this project, from my personal perspective, is there is a $50,000 grant. So it seems to me like cheap money to get us something that could be a commodity and could reduce this bulkiness from our waste stream. Reduce it, New Hampshire's landfills are filling up quickly. I don't know if you've been hearing about the Casella debate. And so this seems like something that the Sustainability Advisory Committee was strongly supportive of, and I definitely agree with that. Just in terms, I tried to put, you should have a fact sheet. Okay.
Yeah, we got it.
Yep.
We got it.
Yep.
Imagine on the styrofoam, it has to get it down.
Share with me if you like.
Oh, sorry, Liz. Yeah, and pass the other.
There are some facts on the top, just kind of using Guilford's example of some of the savings that we can recoup from this. Guilford has experienced that their loads are 1.2 tons heavier, so they're seeing a $4,000 to $5,000 savings each year, because when you have heavier loads, you're getting rid of more waste instead of having it be filled with something lightweight and bulky.
And just slow, if you would,
Yeah.
just slow that down. So what that means is their regular solid waste loads are denser because this foam's not in it. So they're getting more bang for their buck with their regular solid waste by removing the foam from it. Do I have that right?
You do.
Okay.
Yep. And thank you for slowing me down. I need that reminder a lot. The other idea is, because styrofoam is very bulky, this heats up styrofoam and condenses it into a product that the town can then sell. The organizer that we would be purchasing this unit, if it was supported, they are the ones who will seek the buyers for us at no cost to the town. That's a service that they provide. We don't have to use them if we want to find our own purchaser. But again, using Guilford's numbers, and just like cardboard, just like aluminum, et cetera, these numbers vary based on the economy and what they can be sold for. But Guilford has experienced $620 to $700 a ton for income for this.
How many tons per year for Guilford?
So Guilford, that was in the write-up. Guilford had, sorry. I had
We'll catch up on it
tallied
later.
what
Don't worry about
yeah,
it.
Sorry about that.
Keep going. I apologize.
I had the same
then,
question.
and then there were some particular questions that were raised when I was here, and Bob had sent some additional to me to address. Who would be responsible for ensuring, someone had asked, could packing peanuts be a part of it? The answer is no. These can accept food grade styrofoam, but they need to be clean. And so we have an issue with that. Really, the biggest problem that a user, a household deals with is the bulkiness of these styrofoam packing. Those are already clean, and so this facility will have a drop bin that residents, as they go through the transfer station, could drop off their styrofoam. Public Works has the capacity to process it on an as-needed basis. There's space to store within the shipping container from, excess from that storage bin, and then they can be processed as needed. The other thing was, where could they be stored? They can be stored outside. They don't need to be protected from the elements, and so there is capacity at the transfer station and Simpson's Pit to accommodate storage before we sell it, because obviously if we stockpile some more, the more we're selling, the more money we'll recoup, because there's some transportation costs. Yes.
Hold on a second. So is that, you're comfortable with that?
Sure. Let's just go to questions.
Can I fortify that a little bit?
Fortify
Just to frame it
Since you're
up.
on the committee that helped.
So this is the material that we're talking about. I brought visual aids. You would not want to have this without visual aids. I also want to show you a couple other things that were.
I was hoping for something from Las Olas.
Yeah, exactly.
Those clean.
Yeah, your order's over here. So this pile here is stuff we can make money on, right? This stuff generates revenue. We spend a lot of time in our town collecting these, and sort of the joke's on us. We spend a little more than $500,000 a year collecting blue bins. A large volume of that never gets recycled. So we pay for it, it gets buried and stuff like that. What excites me, and we'll talk about this in future meetings, I promise you. What excites me about this is a great commodity, right? We sell that. The paperboard is a great commodity, we sell that. As is the styrofoam. This is in everybody's house. It goes in blue bags now, as we pointed out earlier. It takes up a lot of space. So the options really are, we're handling it anyway around town. It's in your house, it's in businesses, it's going somewhere. We have an opportunity to make it go somewhere that we can actually capture this stuff instead of putting it in the ground. The reason why it's such a hot recycled commodity is, I think it's 11 states so far, more are coming, have banned the new virgin manufacture of expanded polystyrene because of the chlorofluorocarbons it requires to build it. But when you use recycled, it can be reconstituted and put into products. So there's an ever-increasing demand. The market trend on this is up. So I really see it as an opportunity for us to look at the things that we can, recoup and at worst case break even, and at best case have a revenue stream versus all the things that we're used to doing that are just laughingly costing us money. So,
Ton, I think you had your hand up first.
Yeah, thanks. So, look, I assume that if this thing goes through the process and makes it onto the warrant or whatever gets approved, that it will be contingent on on this $50,000 grant, i.e. it's not going to happen if we don't get the grant. So we're talking, I hope.
Is that true?
That's how we'd frame it, yes.
I would hope you'd frame it that way, and so
Well, we've had other projects that were, had grants associated with them when we didn't get the grant.
That's why I'm saying, as always, I'm stating the obvious.
Thank you for the clarification.
So, okay, so at worst, we're into this thing, 30,000, and I'll make that assumption, so I'll base my decision on that, and I'll depend on the select board and management and all that to make sure that that's the case. I guess what I'm more interested in is, how long will this market be there? How much longer are we going to be packing things with styrofoam? And hopefully not too long, to be honest, and so how does that tie in with the turnaround? I don't expect an answer on that, but I'll just take it on faith that there's enough styrofoam out there that we will recoup our investment of 30,000. All right, so that's another statement more than a question.
That's not, I wouldn't look at it that way.
Okay, well, that's kind of, I'm phrasing it.
This is really a densifying, that should be the number one priority, is the densification of a very bulky waste.
Okay.
Because markets, as Kristen said, markets go like this.
Yeah.
Witness the, polyethylene and high density poly, they go south.
I wanted to get to my most important probably question in this one is, making sure that the right products end up in this thing is going to require supervision of some sort. And we got one guy right now sitting in that booth who's directing traffic and instructing people, right, at the transfer station. So what's this going to take in the long run? Is it going to require just diligence and education, or are we going to have to get that guy out of his booth and have him stand right next to the styrofoam thing, and all the logistics that come along with that have me concerned a little bit. Not to mention the logistics of, I think it was mentioned potentially this would be a regional thing. How do we deal with that? That ties in with the earlier thing about, who pays, who doesn't, that sort of thing. So I'm feeling a little cart before the horsey on this one, which troubles, it bums me out, quite honestly, because I'd love to budget for what I would ideally like to see our town become. But I'm feeling a little cart before the horse on this one.
If Dave and Don, you could just bear with, because I heard some questions in there, so between you and Steve.
Please.
I think the logistics of the operation would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that is a big question mark.
So this unit, it's a shipping container, imagine that, with a densifier in it. It also has, if you envision a clothing donation bin,
Densifier. Is it just a simple shred and compress, or is there a chemical?
It's a heater. It's a
Oh,
heater.
it's
It melts it, basically.
So since we're talking about
So
heating, what are the byproducts of that heating process?
A lump of polyester.
Are there any outgassing?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So it's
Good question.
that I think is an.
But let's talk about the logistics, what the impacts are on public works personnel first.
Exterior to the shipping container, there would be a donation box where people would take their styrofoam and put it in. That's lined with, the sheet has a picture of it, these large donation bin-sized bags, right? And so when that bag is full, it gets brought out and put inside the shipping container. The commodity can be ensured that it's pure
Excuse me
in that.
for just one second. So who does that?
So that would be Public Works employees.
So the guy in the booth?
Yeah. So, but it's a batching operation, so essentially it would be collected, deposited by people at the station, and then once it's full, it would be loaded into, so it's not, it wouldn't interrupt.
I'm just trying to figure out if this is going to require more labor.
That was
down
that was
the road.
one of
So
my questions. is-
We're just trying to walk
Yep.
through this. It's not really just
Yeah.
about the $80,000 or $30,000. It's about it's the fire station. It's really what it comes down to. What's the outgrowth in labor requirements?
Okay, so those bags get brought into the container and stored until it's time for processing. At the time of processing, it's Public Works staff who are doing that. So they're able to if there were contaminated items that aren't supposed to be included in this, they could remove them and those would be tossed. But the product that gets densified, we want to ensure meets the standards so we can sell it as a commodity.
So again, they would be
Public Works.
the guy,
employees. At
the one
time-
guy out there.
No.
Okay,
At
so-
the time of processing so when the styrofoam gets processed, it will take staff to
Several people
to.
coming out
Yes.
to the facility.
If I may elaborate on that labor question. So I'm looking at the densifier in this picture.
Yes.
How much time does it take, labor hours does it take to process one bag through that densifier? It looks to me like it's a process of somebody picking up individual pieces of styrofoam and feeding it into this device.
Yeah, so Guilford, they say about, it depending on how many how many times communities deposit it to them, but they usually store it up every couple months. So every couple months, they'll spend 4.5 hours processing what they have for
Okay.
material.
That's very helpful.
That's great.
So first of all, I'm hugely in favor of this. An enormous number of things show up. I just had a bathroom redone, and the volume of that type of styrofoam that showed up was immense. And not only did I have to break it down into blue bags, but in the process of breaking it down, I ended up with little bits of styrofoam that were now blowing all over the place, which is another styrofoam. So I'm hugely in favor of this. My questions are purely due diligence. So I'm still curious about outgassing. I presume it's safe because otherwise Guilford wouldn't have their people working near it. So just asking the question. I think I alone in 1 month could fill up one of these bags. And I'm not kidding. If you're doing any sort of, I order a 3D printer and that comes in really heavy duty, like inch thick styrofoam. So I'm kind of curious if we are, I will be surprised if we aren't processing things faster than Guilford. But the 4 hours to process that much is the information I was looking for in terms of
Yeah,
labor.
that's very helpful.
And those were my questions.
Anna?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Anna. Liz has been very patient over here.
I have a few questions that aren't necessarily related to each other, but I'll just share them all at once. First of all, I don't want to lose sight of the question we asked earlier about the quantity being processed in Guilford. How many tons approximately? Second, I don't think it's really been covered here, but I think in our meeting you shared that Guilford is collecting materials from other communities, which they are then selling and earning money from. So if you could enlighten us a little bit more about the possibility for revenue there, that would be great. And then finally, I would like to know more about the intended use of the revenues themselves. Would they go to supplementing our waste management? Can we channel some of them into conservation, our conservation fund, for instance, and get a little bit more long-term thinking with how the revenue gains are used?
Okay, so I'll take them one at a time. So the quantity in Guilford, sorry, I didn't have it initially. So in the first 6 months, they collected 5.5 tons and sold them for $4,500 to $5,000. That's in addition to their hauling savings, which was $4,000 to $5,000 a year. So 6 months, $4,000 to $5,000 of commodity sold. Guilford is a smaller community than we are.
Yeah.
In
And
terms.
I don't, sorry to interrupt. I
Yes.
don't know what cubic feet, what that space looks like that's then
Yeah.
being diverted from landfill, but it sounds like that's significant.
So
So when you process the styrofoam, it gets densified about in half. So physically, a pallet of this densified foam, which I think I do have pictures that I can show you. A pallet of a densified foam, if you can imagine, stacked up, all of the coils kind of piled on top, which is maybe.
You can pass that.
It's like a normal
Yeah.
shipping pallet.
Right, exactly.
And then
It is the
probably-
product of, if you took an 18-wheeler filled with styrofoam and densified it, so that's the equivalent.
So this is- Go ahead. What we're about to see, each one of these is half of the original volume. So just looking at each one of these bags, it looks like each one of these bags gets reduced by half, and that's essentially like 4 of these.
According to their patent.
Sorry, half by weight.
9 to 1.
Yeah, it should be way more than.
That's what I said, because 2 to 1 is not a huge win. If it's 90 to 1,
That's what their patent says.
it's 9.
The air.
Sorry.
Well, so that's part of my
That's
concern.
significant.
That makes a lot more sense because it is most.
90% of the air goes away, 2% is left.
Okay.
According to the patent.
Even if we're reducing it by 10 to 1, that's a whole lot better than 2 to 1.
Yeah.
So I think running down exactly what the ratio is of original material to densified material, 'cause it feels like you're off by a significant,
Yeah.
in a good
Yes,
direction.
I know, I'm a visual, and I apologize, I'm a visual person, and so that's why I did the pallet and the box truck. That to me made sense, a lot more sense than tons and.
Well, the visual helped me understand
But-
that something wasn't
Yeah,
right in the numbers.
yeah.
So
And then.
I think the
Well,
story.
before we go, you guys have asked a lot of questions. Fran has a question. We can
I have a
circle back
couple
to
of
you.
comments.
Yes, so should
Were
I
you done?
finish the other
I
two?
had one more question for her.
Oh, so regional collaboration, how do we market this regionally? Rockingham Planning Commission, Tim Roach reached out, he's very excited about this. He's very excited to push it to other communities. Guilford, I have a list of the communities that they receive materials from, and it's, a page and a half of
That's why it
towns.
gets so much stuff.
They all contribute various amounts, and then the last one was revenue. Oh, where would it go? I was envisioning it would go toward our waste stream. So there is a significant, and Bob, I think you hit on it, there is a significant hidden cost to all of our waste that I don't think the average resident is aware of or understands. And so the volume that we would save by getting this out of the waste stream is dramatic.
Yeah.
And so I guess I just wanted to reemphasize what Bob had said. The commodity is amazing and it's wonderful. Do we want to promote more styrofoam? No, but this is a way to deal with what we have today. Anyway, so I just wanted to hit on that. And then-
Franny?
A couple of comments. One is that it seems to me that it takes an awful lot of styrofoam to get a ton. And now that you've read the long, lengthy list of communities contributing, I can understand why Guilford has been successful. We don't have that long list of contributors. We only have the people who live here. And the people who live here are not going to drive out to the transfer station because they have a little box of styrofoam. They won't.
It's going to add up. But
I mean, you
I don't-
convinced me they will. If they're going there anyway, they might take their styrofoam. Are they going to stockpile styrofoam in their garages until they have enough to make it worth going out there? Maybe. I don't know.
I
The
mean,
other
blue
thing is
bags
that
are
DPW is going to go and do the work, which means you're taking someone off of another job, which we're told we're often short-staffed and can't get to certain projects. And now we're going to take somebody off that crew or, a crew and send that person
Hold
across
on.
town, to
Liz,
deal with
something.
styrofoam. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to respond. So one of the big things, Fran, we speak about on the Sustainability Advisory Committee with Kristen is, even beginning, our high school seniors run an electronics recycling. People save those things up in their garage to drop off. We have hazardous waste day. People save those things up to drop them off. And so one of the big things that will make this a success, especially when we collaborate with like Rockingham Planning Commission and working with our other communities across school districts and things like that, is having collection days and you meet everybody at the bandstand and putting it in the back of a box truck and taking it up there. So it's a difficulty for all residents of all towns and all public works managers want to figure out a way to deal with this stuff. Everybody's suffering for that air jammed in their tipping fees that they're not really getting the density that they really need. So everybody kind of wins with this, and we win double because we get to collect a bigger amount. Will it take some coordination and effort? Yes, all good things do, but we're actually, the Sustainability Advisory Committee is pretty ready to get their shoulder behind this and make it a regional thing. So,
Liz, and that'll be it.
So this sounds great. Why don't more towns do it? Like, if it's gonna bring in money and we're gonna get rid of styrofoam and it's gonna, all those things sound really excellent. And so I'm surprised that not more communities have it. So why is that?
I think it's awareness, to be honest. I don't think a lot of communities are aware that this is an opportunity. The grants, to me, when you take a project and you can accomplish it for 38 cents on the dollar, if the grant is given, it seems it seems like it makes sense. I don't really have the answer.
So I'm going to finish things up. Two questions. The potential funding offer, I'm assuming that's a national, entity, that's not state recycle foam?
Correct.
And so we'll be competing with all other areas of the country that may or may not be ahead of us on something like this. I mean, what are the chances of us
I
getting
think
the
the
grant?
chances are good because the numbers of these units nationally aren't large.
Okay, great. And then the last question is, it sounds like Dave Kovar is going to be filling up this container by himself.
We'll schedule his visits.
So if that's the case, and this is, I guess, directed to you, Steve, will the new orientation of the transfer station allow us to be storing, if we're only densifying once every few months, will we be able to accommodate that?
Yeah, I think, as Kristen said, it doesn't have to be, it can be exposed to the elements, so it doesn't necessarily need to be stored up at the container. I mean, we can stockpile the stuff elsewhere on the site and then process it and move it around. So I don't think it would impact operations.
Okay, so at this point,
Yeah, I just had two things I wanted to mention, Bob. One is that it was mentioned about revenues, just from the technical perspective, the revenues from this would come into the general fund and would go to offset our solid waste disposal costs. And the other thing is that the committee received a letter of support from Cymbidium Floral on this as far as supporting the styrofoam recycling unit. So I wanted to mention that as well. That a local business owner did weigh in with a letter to the BRC, which is doesn't always happen.
Doesn't happen very often.
Doesn't happen very often.
Right. In support, usually it's against.
Yes.
Bob, just a comment about the deliberative session presentation.
Sure.
When this is presented at deliberative session, I hope that people will pay attention to Fran's comment and relate how individual homeowners and businesses will be able to collect things and when and where they would take it, and just be more specific about what the practice would be to make this work. If a lot of us only rarely get styrofoam, put it in a little blue bag and that's it.
Okay. So we'll start with, you've heard how this is going to integrate with the transfer station.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Chair. I just want to indicate that the Sustainability Advisory Committee did support this with a letter of recommendation to the Select Board and to this committee as well.
Okay. So I would like to go back to the original transfer station update and You've heard the need by our Public Works Director, and then how the new facilities and new equipment might integrate into that updated traffic pattern, and just modernizing. This transfer station was put together when the population of the town was like 8,000, and now it's double that. So it's a much-needed modernization from purely that perspective. So this would be a 1-year, pure, non-debt. We would not be bonding the transfer station, just raising the money through a warrant article. So I would entertain a motion to put the transfer station updates CIP item on the warrant.
I'll move that.
Do I hear a second? I will second this for discussion.
My point of view is not this year.
Okay. Any further discussion without repeating what we've talked about for the last half hour? Okay, so let's see, what do we have? 10, 11, by show of hands, all in favor of putting it on the warrant, indicate by raising their hand. 3, 4, and 8 against.
Can I register an abstention?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Okay. Abstain. Okay.
Bob,
Yes.
do you want the no votes to raise their hand?
Well, I'm assuming that if they didn't abstain, yes, sure. All those not
Just to
against the,
count it up.
putting it on
Thank
the
you.
warrant, indicate by raising their hand, please. 1, 2,
Thank you.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Don't pull a muscle, Judy.
Huh. The count is right. Okay.
Bob, I'd like to make a motion for 50,000 instead of 100,000. I could get behind splitting the difference and not doing the paving this year, but doing the reconfiguration work and generally updating the transfer station,
Wow.
Second.
I'd second it.
Yeah.
and then let the town decide if that's worthwhile doing.
Who wants to take credit for seconding that?
I'll do it.
I think Don got it.
Well, this gets me off. This
You guys can arm wrestle later.
Two new guys here fighting amongst each other.
I'm not fighting. It gets me off. So from
So
an
for
optics,
discussion purposes, does this
from
help you
an
at all?
optics perspective, it gets me off of my abstention.
I mean, you can make things work.
There was a
Yeah,
reason
yeah,
I
we would
abstained,
focus on-
and I didn't want
on
to
things
discuss
like
it.
the
because you
Excuse me,
said-
hold on.
Sorry.
Please.
So we would focus on things like the safety and the access and the relocation to try to, improve traffic circulation and just omit the paving.
And make sure it works, and then the paving goes down next year,
Okay,
possibly.
Discussion?
sure. Continued discussion if you're not repeating yourself.
It would certainly.
And I'll be the judge of that.
But I would take a moment here. I put in a lot of time in this committee, and I think we've had very long meetings in past years, and I think it's all very worthwhile discussion. It would certainly give you an opportunity to work, this ties in with the styrofoam thing as well, which is this. That styrofoam thing, if it passes, is going to have logistic problems related to it, relative to access and execution, et cetera, especially if it's a regional effort. So the reconfiguration will help you in that regard, because I think that the styrofoam thing, if it passes, will be a thorny issue. That's my opinion, dude, and I'm sticking with it. That's from a movie, by the way.
Yes. Any further discussion? Non-repeating, further discussion? Thank you, Tom, for your brief comments.
Thank you, Bob.
So all in favor of the motion to fund the transfer station updates to the tune of $50,000, moved by Andrew, seconded by David, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Hey, hey.
Well, there you go.
Democracy in action.
Nicely done, Mr. Elliott.
Wow, Andrew.
Just another dirt road in town.
I like dirt.
I like dirt roads.
They were loved.
Well, there you go. Okay. So I would entertain a motion to, based on what we've heard on the recycling unit, And I would, again,
I'll move that.
urge you to look at this more of a styrofoam densification unit in the short term until markets can get established, but it's still, I think it's a positive addition to our tools for reducing waste in this town. But that's my editorial comment. I will entertain a motion.
I'll move that.
Mr. Zigma.
Yes.
Second.
Discussion.
I can't write that fast, Tom. Hold on.
I'd like.
Discussion. You want to go
I
first?
think Don has some thoughts too. Go ahead, Don.
Well, you were loudest.
Yeah,
so
I was loud.
going
Okay,
with
I'll
you.
go first, that way you can rebut. Okay, if this passes, I certainly think that the 50,000 that we've just recommended helps it be more palatable to me, because I have concerns. And I would strongly encourage you to suss out the logistics of this thing relative to employees, but also what someone's going to do when they show up with a pickup truck load of peanuts and then they get turned around, and who then, and where do those peanuts end up, and who pays for that? So there's a lot of ins and outs and what have you. Well, you know what I meant when I said peanuts. I mean, something that looks like styrofoam but is not, does not meet the standards, right? So there's quoting the same movie, there's a lot of ins and outs and what have yous there. And so if this thing passes, I wish you luck, but I think you got a lot of work ahead of you.
Andrew?
I just had one question for Kristen. Did you look at possibly renting or leasing this equipment for the first few years, just to see what the market's like and get some idea about logistics and things like that?
I did not. Yeah, I don't, the organization that we were going to use does not offer leasing or renting as an option. There could be other options out there. I'm not aware of it.
Dave?
If we say.
I'm sorry, Amanda had her hand up.
That's fine, that's fine.
I just want to, I'll state the obvious. I did a little math, and so the worst case scenario, just from reducing our trash costs, is 8 years at, the worst case scenario to recoup. And the best case scenario with the Guilford numbers, which ours could be different, would be 3 years. So.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's
With the
like
grant.
this.
And this was contingent on the grant, so.
It's still our money,
Can't produce
federal
those
money.
numbers, though. We don't have the capacity.
So
The issue of cleanliness, I think, is more significant. I've seen I know myself, I've torn apart many pizza boxes because there's a stain. I just see the same problem with the styrofoam. People going to rinse it off? The other thought I had is if we rented a truck and parked it, the trailer, and we parked it at the site, and we just dumped the styrofoam into it and brought it to Guilford, would be getting rid of it at, I'm sure, a less cost.
So let me tie a couple things together.
So the same guy who's in the booth at the transfer station is driving it now up to Guilford?
But maybe once every 6 months?
So
I think
it's not,
it'll
so
fill up quicker than that.
it'll fill up quicker than that because it hasn't been densified, which gets back to the core point that Amanda made, that this keeps a very light, large volume of material out of our landfills, which is important unto itself. 2, in 8 years maximum, it'll pay for itself, assuming the grant comes through. It's a win-win right there. 3, the volume of styrofoam that I've seen, and we do a fair bit of takeout and all that sort of stuff, over the last couple of years has reduced dramatically. A lot of the local entities are using some form of cardboard or things like that, a lot of which can go into the Mr. Fox rather than anything else. So I'm not seeing, the only styrofoam that I've had in the last year, and trust me, I get angry every single time I've got to break apart styrofoam, put it in a blue bag, and pay $5 to get it away that way, has been clean stuff used for shipping things around.
Let's go. Mr. Chair.
Yeah, sure. Go for it. I just had some industry comments to make, but you go for it.
No, and I think you put it smartly at the top that it's a densifier, but I want to make sure people understand what that value is. And, one of the things that we talk about quite a bit is our waste management fees, right? And I'd ask Steve, do they typically go up or do they typically go down when we renew the contract?
They typically go up.
They go up? Oh, my gosh. Well, yeah, they're going to go up. And, we have an opportunity to make that much more valuable to us. That, when we pack denser trash and we take out stuff like food waste that we can compost and styrofoam that we can sell densified. So it's really, you're already paying this money to waive this off and just keep paying it, which is just going to go up. Just seems so nonsensical to me that the upside is absolutely the ability to recoup this cost through selling the commodity, but just the ability to reduce every household's cost makes so much sense to me.
Yeah, well, the way I look at this is it's and thank you, Russ, for articulating the fact that we would probably not be going forward with this if we do not get the grant.
Right.
That is the case. That is not always the case in this town with the things we vote on. So that's one. And the corollary to that is, so really this is costing $30,000. We spend far more than that on things that none of us are passionate about because we have to. So the fact that we've discussed this through is great. Obviously, there are a lot of questions, but to me, a $30,000 investment is pretty cheap money for doing something that may end up paying for itself in 3 or 4 years and be a really great thing for the town. And the chances are, at worst case, it's going to densify some of that crap we get that we don't want to put in our blue bag. So I think it's worth taking a chance on. Anna?
I'll just note that for those who may vote yes or no on the warrant article based on the name of the warrant article, if densification is so important, let's add that to the title. Styrofoam densification and recycling unit. It's a mouthful, but it conveys what the value is.
And to my email to you, I agree with that. I don't want to get caught up in deliberative session with the definition of recycling and if we can get rid of it. To me, that's not the point here. The point is taking an airy, ridiculous piece of trash and making it smaller and less costly to get rid of. So yeah, I think that's a great suggestion, is to maybe reorient the narrative a little bit. So we have a motion and a second to put the $80,000 warrant article, or an article on the warrant. If you notice, again, on page 21, that this is planned by the executive committee, the $30,000 delta would be paid for out of fund balance. So there would be no additional tax impact if this gets voted in. So effectively, it's a pilot program, $30,000 pilot program. Mm-hmm. We've already paid for the money that will go to fund this. All those in favor of putting this on the warrant for 2025 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Thank you.
And I would hope, Kristen, when you're talking with the Sustainability Committee, that they might look at the source point for where this comes from and do some work around decreasing the styrofoam coming into the community.
Wait a moment, then we're going to lose money if we do.
So I think they'll work that out. Okay, next item is on page 6, the Park Improvements Fund. This is brought forth by Parks and Rec. And the write-up is quite extensive. Greg has done a nice job of laying out a short list of projects that add up almost to the 100,000, and obviously they have far more than what is shown here. So they have plenty of work to do. This is a fund that we established many years ago to basically to continue the recreational and park services in town without adding significantly to the budget. Greg, you want to give us the Cook's tour of what you have planned?
Yeah, obviously, thank you for the support over the last several years. We've used the fund to really do a major dent on the deferred maintenance. Unlike a broken record, we had over $3 million of deferred maintenance when I took this role over 5 years ago. And every year, it seems more and more keeps coming, especially after this past spring's facility assessment, when they mentioned the pool building in 10 years would need to be replaced. We want to be proactive, and being proactive in improving the parks costs less than being reactive. And that's something we always have to keep in mind. And like I echoed last year, the state statute where the residents are protected as long as we maintain recreational, the town is protected as long as we maintain the recreational spaces appropriately. And if we're negligent and know things are failing, it could always come back and bite us. And that's something that we've always done. But also taking a step forward in how we can be really improving the parks to a major feature. One of the things for 2025 I would love to do is, once 10 Hampton Road is completed, anyone that has access to Recreation Park, we have a paved pathway that goes 3/4 of the way there and stops. And anyone that has walked Hampton Road knows the sidewalk ends at 4 Hampton Road. So now it's a continuation where you could access 10 Hampton Road through and safely by going around through the rec park, which a lot of people do, and I see that a lot. Ever since we purchased 10 Hampton Road, the abutting neighborhoods use that as an access point for the rec park. But you look at other things, for instance, that we continue to deal with, like the conservative part, we do pay for water out of the rec revolving fund. Our spray pad leaks 250 to 300 gallons a day while we run it. And we pay for that water. Yes, it goes back into the ground. It's not getting, but for us, we're trying to reduce our costs to offer services. And we want to make the quality of life and the parks improved for people. I get thrilled every time I go by Townhouse Common, and we have 3 strategic picnic areas. And you go by at a noontime, and they're all full. People are eating lunch there. That's something the Park Improvement Fund has done. I can't talk any bit more. Like, there's certain parks that obviously we haven't touched, and there's certain parks that will need work as we go on. But it's something that the Park Improvement Fund definitely helps us achieve those. And if there's a long-term project that, when I meet with the executive team where it's more than $100,000, we set up this so we could carry over a balance, so we're not coming to the voters saying we need X amount of dollars for this. But this also gives us leverage where we can use these funds to leverage it for grants. Case in point, I am applying for grants for a tennis rebounder. Anyone that's been to the tennis courts, you have the board, you hit. If you go up there by yourself, it's really boring. But you can hit it against there, and you can practice both pickleball and tennis. Well, that board is 26 years old, and it is spongy. It needs to be replaced. USTA offers up to a $5,000 match to replace said board with a more sustainable material that will last 25 to 30 years. This is the opportunity where we can then go to the select board and say, hey, we have an opportunity through USTA to buy not 1, but 2 rebounding boards and have them on both lower and upper courts to allow more people to use those. And guess what? We have $5,000 match. Can we use these funds? So it's the opportunity to do it. And when we look at it, especially we've done this before. We can do a lot of the work in-house as long as these materials are bought out of there. 2 years ago, we repainted the pool, saving $70,000 because we were able to purchase the paint for the pool. We just put the second coat on. I helped our parks foreman finish it this past fall. So there's a second coat. That gives a surface that will protect the pool for another 5 years. So this is a reason why it's important to keep establishing the fund and give us an opportunity, especially the Rec Advisory Board, to examine these projects or come up with new projects. I mean, I had a teenager stop me the other day at the skate park asking, when am I going to replace the skate park? I love the passion, but at the same time, we need to work and chip away at projects one after another. So we're continuously working as a team to come up with projects and find ways. We just funded, on Monday night, the select board approved using some of the park improvement funds for ADA enhancements to the already approved Planet Playground. So the Rec Advisory Board looked at it with some great volunteer residents, Amanda being one of them, and we're like, how can we already improve a new design to make it even better and to give people a little history? So those mats that we are purchasing are the same mats at Park Street, but those mats could not be funded by the grant because they're not Build America, Buy America. So the town had to pony up for those mats. Perfect example of why we use this fund. And on top of that, we also are fundraising to improve it. So we're working on both ends, but to a certain point, to keep up maintaining our park system is important to keep putting an infusion of revenue into it.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions for Greg? Andrew?
Why are we doing it in as this mechanism rather than the maintenance line item you have in your budget?
Well, when we designed this fund years ago, the rationale for was we could use it also as a savings account that would straddle fiscal years. So basically, if you go through a year and you spend 80,000 out of the 100,000, you can carry the 20,000 into the next year.
So what's the current fund balance?
After Monday night, it's about $41,000. But we have several projects in the works that will be going to select board at some point in the next few months to get approved. So it gives us that opportunity to straddle the different calendar years and get
It's just a
done.
revolving fund then. We just prefer it to be.
It's similar in ways, but again, it was mainly designed because projects come at different times, grants come at different times, and if you don't have the funding mechanism, obviously you can't provide a grant match, as an example that Greg just pointed out. So this gives us a lot more flexibility in terms of how we're able to fund projects.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just tons of support for this. I think the work you do with what you get is outsized. It's fantastic. So I love all the just we can do it attitude that you guys have and just get it done, and you exceed expectation all the time. So I'm full of support of this. So.
Thank you. Further comments? Tom?
Go ahead, Don.
One suggestion, possibly on the walkway, is in other towns that I've been to, in the towns itself, as well as in the recreation areas, they actually have people buy pavers, and they will be engraved in memory of different captions, that they will pay a few $100s per paver, which generally should be able to pay for the rest of the work in putting in a pathway such as this. I've personally had the thought that would be a very good way to collect money for the rec department by doing the walkway basically from the entrance all the way to 10 Hampton Road. it doesn't have to be all done in 1 year, and maybe start on the Hampton Road first, but I think it's a way that we could reduce the cost of trying to pave it and shed the cost to more of the people that are using it.
You should get on the recreational advisory committee. Excellent. It's great.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, well.
I wanted to compliment you on your work on Gale Park. It looks great.
That was totally a volunteer, Don, and yeah, we were able to scrape up enough money to help reimburse some of the costs, like the pavers that line the bed. We had a lot of volunteers come out, and I'm going to echo, we're very lucky to get the amount of volunteers we get. Anyone that, again, I echoed this last time, is anyone that's seen the pool building, to get 30 Phillips Exeter Academy faculty and staff out to paint a pool building when it was out of their comfort zone, and we transformed it with a mere $1,500 of paint.
Yeah.
And it really made a big difference. Or the United Day of Caring and their Earth Day, we had 30 to 40 volunteers, and all I had to feed them is Jersey Mikes and buy the materials, and they moved 25 yards of loam in 3 hours.
Wow.
50 yards of playground mulch in an hour. So when you get the people passionate, they will come out and help. And I think this town has definitely supported that, and we always look for anyone that would like to adopt a spot. You can contact my email. We have plenty of spots that need some tender love and care.
Excellent. Awesome. This will be, it's noted as the Parks Improvement Fund, but as the note says on page 20 of the pre-tab, half of this will actually be the rec revolving fund as well, and everything sort of gets lumped in together anyway, right? At least according to the note.
No, I'm sorry, that note is a misprint. This 100,000 is all taxation.
Well, there you go, it's a misprint. Guess I shouldn't take things too literally without QCing them through the executive committee. I will entertain a motion to have the Parks Improvement Fund of $100,000 put on the warrant.
So moved by Swan.
Second.
Amanda seconds, Ton moves. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next item is the ADA Improvements Revolving Fund, page 7. $25,000. Be 1 year non-debt. And the General Government Subcommittee supported this item. So do you want to?
Yeah, I'll just share that last year and the previous year, we went back and forth with whether to reduce it and keep it funded at the same rate. And I think the missing piece was some organization to plan around actually accomplishing some of the things on the list. And Amanda has stepped up to collaborate with Doug and Dave and the others in the town, to Steve and others, to get the projects, the punch list kind of worked through. And I don't know that relying on a citizen volunteer is the long-term sustainable approach to getting this work done, but that was the missing piece. That was why it was underspent, was somebody wasn't just marching through and helping us make sure we were getting it done. So I am in full support of this. And I'm also anxiously looking forward to how a complete streets study might inform, in a more proactive way, how this is spent.
Do we have any kind of, there's no like ADA advisory committee or anything like that, right? It's basically just.
There's not a formal committee for it.
Under the planning department.
Yeah, Doug Eastman is our ADA coordinator, so everything ADA related flows through his office. But we've had, like was mentioned earlier, we have Public Works working with Amanda on a couple of different initiatives, or on one specific initiative out on Railroad Avenue, working on that design. Mm-hmm. And they just completed a project over at the library, which was a nice project as well. So things are moving in the fund, for sure.
Excellent. Any further comments? Don?
I wanted to give credit to the rec department. A couple of years ago, we started with adaptive racket sports at the courts. And if you've been a few years ago, it was very difficult for anybody challenged to get into the lower courts, or even to get into the upper courts. And I must take my hat off to Greg. They put the town, they put a ramp in for the lower courts, repaved the entrance into the upper courts. Bathroom's still a little iffy, but we're getting there.
Excellent. I'll entertain a motion to put the ADA improvements revolving fund on the warrant.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Amanda moves, Zig seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item is the EV charging station on page 8. This is $120,000 that would be paid for out of fund balance, as proposed by the executive team to be paid for out of fund balance. Therefore, it would not have any additional tax impacts. It's already been paid for through other means. Kristen, give us a little overview here.
Okay, so I am here tonight. Cliff Sinnott is also here. He's chair of the Energy Committee. This was an initiative that they had started a few years ago, went back to the drawing board, and then picked it back up again. They looked at several sites, and what they settled on was the Water Street parking lot, the Bow Street end of the Water Street parking lot. And the reason for that is one of the ways to have successful EV charging is to have it near, near where a lot of people are. So we had proposed, the fact sheet shows the location that we had proposed, shrinking up an existing island that's in the parking lot, which would still leave a small island for the charging infrastructure, and would only lose two parking spots. These would be two units, each with 2 ports, so 4 total level 2 chargers. The way we have it set up, it would be a networked service, meaning to find it, you're on a network, people can easily find where it is, whether they know Exeter or don't know Exeter. They come with a 5-year warranty, and it's a flexible pay structure, so that we can control what we charge for EV charging. Obviously, we have to pay the utility, but we can set the rate structure. It is an economic incentive for the downtown businesses and does support the movement away from fossil fuel emissions, fossil fuel dependent vehicles. The project would be $120,000. There is a charging fueling infrastructure grant that we had, as I mentioned in the intro, the original budget committee meeting. We had submitted, so this is a program that the state of New Hampshire is applying for federal funds to bring funds into the state. And to justify their grant application, they sought existing charging proposals. We offered ours up, which meant that the state vetted our project to make sure it meets their grant requirements. So should the state receive federal funds, and they will know at the end or the beginning of December if they get federal funds, they will have a request for proposals. We'll still have to apply, but I will say we were at the local Energy Solutions Conference, happened to sit next to the state entity, the state person who vets these, and he was like, "Oh, Exeter, oh yeah, I reviewed your project. It was a great proposal," so there seems to be some movement and support for it. The beauty of this CFI grant is it's 80% of the project cost. They provide 80% of the total project cost. We come up with the 20%. So that means the project's about 20 cents on the dollar. There is also the investment tax credit, the ITC, investment tax credit, which is a 30% tax initiative. That's federal. We don't know the future of that, so I've not considered that in the return of investment. I have it listed there, but I will say, I call it a grant, but this is reimbursement. We would need to fund the project fully to the operational state and have 90 days until we get reimbursed. But we would know, so we would apply to the state the end of December, and we would know before town meeting if we were awarded the grant. The return of investment is very challenging to come up with a number there. This committee asked that I do that. And the reason it's challenging is because utility rates vary, your charging rate structure varies, your utilization rate varies. So I sort of put some boundaries on that of a 10% utilization rate, which is each charger 2.5 hours a day, which I think is low compared to what we see locally. A 35 cents per kilowatt hour fee for those who charge, and a 50-cent user fee. So with those bounds, the return of investment, if we got the charging fueling infrastructure grant, we would break even in year 2 and be cash flow positive through this in year 3. Some other questions that that came up at the last Budget Recommendations Committee was enforcement. How is it enforced? I've been in communication with the local communities who also have electric vehicle charging. They have found, surprisingly to me, but they have found that signs that say EV parking only is really a strong deterrent. People almost feel like ashamed to take up a space or so. I don't know. I wish that were true for all of our other parking restrictions.
Exactly.
Can you program the equipment so that it actually draws electricity out of the car?
Kills people's batteries.
We laugh, but what you can do, so if someone's camping out at your EV charging station beyond their battery, say their battery is full and they're still staying there, you can incur a fee. Set it up so you incur a fee to dissuade them from doing that. The other thing that came up was police and fire. They had no objections to this proposal. The fire department and Chief Paisan did suggest we consider moving it slightly to the row of spots that are along Bow Street. These would have protective bollards, so the equipment would be protected. We could still, because we were doing this in-house, we could still modify that island so we're not losing the spaces. You're closer to the, to the pole, so it could be a cost savings if we did that. I didn't have time to get an estimate for that move. A lot of that is based on the utility anyway, and you kind of don't know until you have a project before them what their plans are going to be and how they're going to what that permitting process will look like.
If I can quickly interject on the fire,
Yeah.
because I asked the chief about that specifically because you had brought it up, and thank you for checking with him as well. He said the same thing. They have no concerns. There's no additional resources required by the fire department should a vehicle cook off. However, from an environmental perspective, the way they would treat it is they just let it burn out. And that's going to cause a significant amount of damage to the infrastructure. The longer version is if you start suppressing the fire, then it's not burning as hot and you get all sorts of other outgassing. So it's more environmentally friendly to actually let it burn. But the chief agreed, just saying, I also checked and agree with what you just said.
Yeah. I think that's...
Excellent. Questions?
Just a quick comment that the Sustainability Advisory Committee has also submitted a letter of unanimous support for this station as well. And my only other comment would be the opportunity to take advantage of those federal funds through the state. I think are great and might be rarefied. So I wouldn't look for that next year.
At least it's before January 20th.
Exactly.
You might actually get the funds.
That's my point, yeah.
Hold on a second. Andrew had something.
I just had a couple of questions. One, do these take up any of the winter parking spots?
No, my understanding is, and Russ, maybe you could, or Steve, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, the winter parking is at the back edge of the, so.
But it's this parking lot, that's the
Yeah.
parking lot we're talking about, but those aren't winter parking spots.
That is not my understanding.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, it would not.
I think,
Okay.
oh, sorry, just
You have another
one short.
Go for it.
Just, we also talked about removing this island, sort of remove some green space.
Yeah.
We were talking about, like, was there a way to not do that?
Yeah, so the beauty, if we do modify the location to along Bow Street, which seems to make sense for all of the reasons that we mentioned, that island doesn't have a tree on it, but there's potential for that. There is some equipment that's there, but we could build, plant, something there.
Like, just
Yeah.
more green space, the better.
Can I just butt in here? We maintain that green space, and so reducing it would actually help us because it is very hard to maintain because so many cars park right there. So we can't weed whack when someone's parked next to it, and sometimes the grass gets yay tall. There you go.
I support this wholeheartedly. I just want to say I appreciate Kristen's grant writing skills tremendously. I think we all have benefited so much from your skills, so thank you for the work you do in that regard. I want to just point out there's also an opportunity for general public education at this site with signage, perhaps developed by the Sustainability Committee, to educate people about this type of energy use. And I'll also go back to the revenues, knowing that we can possibly see the return on this within as little as 3 years, and knowing that we can control the rate structure. I'll again suggest we consider down the line channeling some of this into conservation funding, some of the revenues into that specifically. I think that would be wonderful, and we've struggled to fund this part of our conservation work.
Dave? Thank you, Adam.
I fully support what Anna just said and various other people have said. I think the quality of the research is excellent. Your considerations, you're taking feedback in. I'm a huge proponent of doing everything we can to reduce climate change. All of those, the economics of this are tremendous. That said, and this is sort of a meta issue and not something at all directed at anybody here, I have concerns about electric vehicles in general. So let me just put it on the record, and then you don't even discuss it if you wish. First of all, if there's the Pacific Northwest, the energy source would be hydro, and it's clean to clean. Well, the energy sources in New Hampshire are somewhat less efficient. So where we're getting energy to put into the vehicles and all the transmission lines and the inefficiencies of getting it from the source to the cars is somewhat problematic. There's a little bit of an optics issue with the demographic surge. It's going to bring people in, but the cost of EVs is significantly higher than the cost of an internal combustion engine. So that means that we are serving a particular population. Batteries are hugely heavy, which causes impact on the road, sort of additional wear and tear on the roads. Should one of those vehicles impact an individual, there's a lot more mass in that impact, and so greater harm to pedestrians. The supply chain for batteries is problematic, and particularly the sources of the raw materials and the way those materials are acquired. The countries that control access to materials is problematic.
You're talking about the batteries for the cars?
Yes.
That's not really our purview and what we're talking about here.
I said this was meta, but
okay. We're a third of or a quarter of the way through, and I think
so
we need to talk about the.
I am moving through this in a very efficient manner, and
Okay.
And also then there's the politics and timing. The politics and timing, I think, are offset by the fact that you've already addressed, hey, there's federal funding for this, and we'll know about it before the meeting. So that addresses that point, and that's the end of what I had to say.
Todd?
I think the thing that probably is going to help people understand this best is that it seems to be an economic attractant to the visitors to town and to the local businesses. I think that's a huge selling point to this thing. So I just wanted to emphasize that part of it because, really, if someone's passing through town, I'm not so sure where they would go to charge their car.
Exeter Inn is the only place.
They would have to go to the Exeter Inn, for example, which doesn't really work relative to the downtown businesses. So this would be the first time off the top of my head where you might actually be supporting visitors and local businesses. To me, that's actually one of the bigger sales pitches for this thing. So in that regard, I think it's a pretty good bang for the buck. So I think I would make it very firmly contingent upon the grants. Again, just as the point I made earlier, it sounds like that's the case.
Is that going to be the case with this as well, do you think?
Yes, we would want to frame it the same way.
Okay. Any further questions? I must have fallen asleep at the switch here. I was looking on the sheet and the CIP write-up. What is the 37,000 plan for next year?
That's a mistake. That's
It
a
is.
mistake. I apologize. Yeah.
That's fine.
Just pointed that.
There's
That
just-
should not be there. It's
Okay.
only a 1 year. Yeah.
That's the right answer. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for weighing in. I will entertain a motion to add the $120,000 EV charging station to the warrant.
I'll move that.
Second.
Chris moves and a seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, Front and Pine Street intersection, page 16.
I just want to, before you started, I just want to, in all due respect to people and who have really, really knowledgeable opinions, David, I really respect how much you know and everything, but especially and I'm sorry I couldn't get here earlier this evening, but especially as we move into this, and I'm sure everyone's got opinions about a traffic circle or not about a traffic circle, we are the Budget Review Committee. We are here to talk about the budget, and just please, it's going to be a long night, and it doesn't have to be that long, but our job, we are here to talk about how these items affect the budget and how these, the town's bottom line. So let's just really try hard to keep it to that. So out of respect for anybody who needs to get home and get some sleep.
And I
Thank
think just
you.
for clarity too, this doesn't really cover that, it's just a drainage question.
Yeah.
No, I'm just talking about anything on this list.
Oh.
Please keep your comments in
So-
regards to the budget.
I thought you were targeting traffic.
Front and Pine Street, as Chris Zigmont alluded to, a couple of years ago, we approved a new rotary at that intersection. In the meantime, Public Works did some TV work in the drain and sewer piping in the area and found some deficiencies, which the good news for the delay in the rotary is that we will be able to fix these without having to dig up the rotary. So this proposal here is for $150,000 of drainage improvements and, I'm sorry, sewer improvements, on $100,000 in drainage improvements underneath the proposed new rotary. So it's not anything up on the street, it's all piping. And the anticipation is that, if I'm not mistaken, Corey and Russ, and Melissa, if you could confirm that this would be paid for out of excess bond proceeds
From Salem Street.
from the Salem Street project.
Right.
Thank you, Anna.
Exactly. You beat me to it.
So there would be no additional tax impact to the taxpayers and the ratepayers. Any comments or questions?
I got one
or
more.
Andrew?
Just a quick one about the excess bond proceeds. Are those from the water and sewer fund bond proceeds, or is that just a different project that we already, like,
It's just a different project that we already completed.
and had excess funds?
Right. Salem Street Utility Project was a combination of water, sewer, and general funds.
Okay, all right. And I guess are these costs, the cost if, whether or not there was a road there, like, or is this assuming we're doing the project and this is the cost with doing the project, or is this the cost if we defer it for 5 years, it's still gonna be $250,000?
No, this is the cost assuming we're doing the project.
Okay, then I'd like to make a motion to move this along and do the 250.
Second.
Okay. Further discussion at the risk of getting hit upside the head by Ms. Suter? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
You'll thank me later when you're in bed.
Okay, next item is the Linden Street Bridge on page 21. So this is a project that was on the warrant a couple of years ago. We raised money for it, put it out to bid at the end of last year, and the bids were extraordinarily high to the extent that they swamped the warrant article. So we are in the process of going out and trying to get more money. The project hasn't changed. The bridge is deficient, needs to be replaced. We're just looking to fill up a funding gap from a couple of years ago. We did get some state money for this, and that would be part of it. So the original estimate, or the current estimate, is a little over $1.5 million. We would only have to raise 1.2 because of the state money that we did receive. This would be paid for with a 10-year bond, approximately an average of $150,000 a year, would have tax impacts. The first payment would not be until FY26. Amanda?
So I support this project. I do have one question that maybe only Russ can answer. So if we raised money for this in some amount in the past and that got returned to the general fund, is there any reason that piece can't come back out of the general fund to further reduce the cost that needs to be raised this year?
It could, but it would make the warrant article very messy because you would be trying to tie in a bond issue with fund balance as a funding source, and the two don't work well together.
Okay.
Because a bond issue needs 60% to pass, and a general appropriation of fund balance is only 50%, so the two really don't work together.
Thank you.
Related to that, so just so I'm clear on it, because I'm not at all, the previous bond then was taken, or was?
There was not a bond. It was, the original appropriation was $310,000 in bridge aid and $295,000 in fund balance funds.
Oh.
Fund balance, my bad.
Okay, got it.
Oh,
And that money was never expended, of course, because the thing was not done.
Correct.
Okay, so we're starting from scratch entirely, or we're factoring that in? We're starting from scratch entirely.
With the 310, we still have the 310.
We still have the 310. We have spent some design funds out of the 295.
Okay, so you've already designated those funds and, okay, got it. Thank you.
And it was explained to me by our esteemed finance director that the 295, we could have used that if this was, let's say, happening last year, but it's basically expiring and going back to the general fund, as Russ said. So to bring that, to resurrect that would be messy. Okay. Okay.
I had one more quick question.
Andrew?
Just, have we evaluated other options for this bridge than repair? I'm assuming the answer is yes, but
I think you make a charming pedestrian bridge, don't you?
I
Yeah.
would love to see that bridge not be a bridge anymore. It's only one way,
It would push
Got
a
a
lot of traffic
ramp.
down towards PEA.
Oh, do I know about traffic being moved?
Yeah, no, I'm sure you
On
do. I'm
Washington
just,
Street.
it's,
Yeah. Yeah, in highway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've looked at alternatives, but removal was not one of them. So it was really just, you know, intermittent repairs. You know, this is really a repair that's going to gain us several years on this bridge. You know, the reason for the cost increase is that, you know, this is a fairly complex repair that uses some soil nails, which are kind of a proprietary product that a lot of the contractors weren't familiar with. So, you know, that was one of the driving factors in the high prices. You know, we interviewed everybody that pulled the plans after the fact and sort of reevaluated, you know, what our engineer had proposed for repairs. You know, they all said that they felt that it was the right avenue to go, but unfortunately, you know, the cost is significantly more than we had anticipated.
How much is it replaced?
I don't know offhand what the number was, but it was significantly more than the repair. So, yeah, it's, you know, you're pouring wing walls and, you know, basically starting from scratch, so.
Which actually begs the question real quick, is that if we're going to move on, you know, raising this kind of money, $1.2 million to fix it, and looking at things like climate change and you know, the power of storms and rivers and things like that, is there an assessment that the repaired bridge will be able to withstand what we're seeing more and more of?
I would assume, based on what we've been told by engineers, yes, but I don't have that information in front of me.
Okay.
Chris, did you have something?
Yeah, just Andrew kind of woke up my brain a little bit when he asked if this could possibly be a pedestrian-only bridge. And, I mean, I don't know if this is cutting off somebody from their home or something like that. If it is, then just trash it. But
It is a public way, so it
Right.
would be discontinuing a public way.
Select
You know,
board could do
provides
that.
emergency access as well as, you know, traffic flow throughout town and to neighborhoods. So those are all things that would have to be considered.
Okay. I'm just wondering why, and again, this could be just foolish to ask, but it really did make me think. Is that something that could be at least looked at? Since it's a one-way bridge? I mean,
It's a two-way bridge.
It's a two-way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It goes
Two-way
to
road.
like, I mean, I don't
That's-
know, 100, 200 houses?
No, I'm sorry, I was told it was a one-way bridge, so I was a little confused about where we're
You
at.
may be thinking of Park Street.
That's
Bridge,
the
which
one
is a
I'm thinking
different
of.
issue. Yeah, I mean, this is a
Oh.
two-way bridge. It
We
is
need
narrow.
Park
It's a
Street
timber
Bridge.
bridge, similar construction, but
Oh, this is Linden Street.
This is the one down by the,
The one that they just fixed.
That's
Next
the
Linden
one.
Street to
Yeah.
Kimball Road.
that's the line.
okay.
Oh,
Why?
Yeah,
okay.
all right, I was thinking.
I know, I saw
totally
Linden
different
Street,
place.
and then
This looks like the wooden.
Andrew
one.
said something else, and I'm like, so then I thought of another place. I
I was
thought,
really
okay.
confused.
We have
Never
two-
mind.
We have two bridges on Linden Street, actually, so
Yeah.
we did a project on the other one.
Right.
Oh,
Oh,
A few years
so
ago.
it's not that.
Further down.
It's further down.
now I know
Right.
which one you're talking about.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the
Right.
one that's further down. It's not the
Oh, yeah,
one
you
by the
can't get
line.
rid of
No,
that
it's
one.
past the line. like
That's right.
for-
Okay,
Within
all
that
right.
conservation areas where the river is. Yeah.
Oh, it's way down.
Okay, I will entertain a
All right, thank you
motion
for
to
that
put
clarity.
the Linden Street Bridge project on the warrant.
So moved.
Second.
Chris Suter moves, Amanda seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's a vote.
Apologies for that mix-up.
Not a problem.
That was my bad.
Pickpocket dam removal, page 22. This has been sort of a
Oh, it's a no-brainer.
sordid history, and so I will ask Steve to,
Not the engineer.
we can read the write-up, but maybe a quick overview, or maybe we just read
Can
the
we just
write-up.
vote? Can we just vote? Can we offer to vote?
You want
Why
to
not?
jump in and make a motion, go for it. But
All right.
Just trying to get all the information out there.
All right. I would like to make a motion that we approve the dam removal.
Second.
We got a second?
Yes.
All right, second from David?
I am still going to call for some discussion.
No, you can.
Hey, thanks.
No, you can. I know that, I'm learning the rules. But I'd like to make a motion that we have,
I got it.
after all said and done, and all the research and all the discussions.
We
and the
still haven't
years,
voted on this one.
that we remove the dam.
Any further discussion about the pickpocket dam removal? I guess not. You're off the hook, Steve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? What a generous group.
We don't need to beat a dead, we don't need to beat a dead horse.
Hey, Bob.
And I love
Yes.
horses.
Raising your hand.
Oh,
Yeah, come up to the mic if you would.
Local,
It's okay, but ready to go.
I'm Joan Pratt, and I
Hi,
live on
Joan.
Wentworth Street, and I just want to say that Jim Breeling and I have been doing a program this fall at, called the Great Bay Water Changers, and we've been, one of the people kind of leading the program has been Melissa Paley, who's a Great Bay waterkeeper, which is funded by the Conservation Law Foundation. And we've learned a lot about dams because she is a dam authority, having been involved in the Durham Dam,
There you go.
other
Grand
dams all
Dam.
around. So we feel like we're damn good at this now. So we
You're damn right.
have been thinking ahead to what might happen at this meeting and meetings down the road. But we want to offer to be a support and have a program that, a campaign is what I mean, to actually put this forward at the town meeting.
Terrific.
So I'm
Great.
just saying that it's already in our heads and we've been talking about it, so we're glad to hear, I'm glad to hear tonight. Jim is in Chicago, I think, but I'm glad to hear tonight that you're also enthusiastic about this. 'cause
You have
that's-
my blessing.
I think it's
That's how we feel.
it's more battle fatigue, but
No,
we'll take
no.
enthusiastic.
It's an educate.
Thanks for your work. That's awesome. Thank you.
No.
Thank you for your input, Joe. Okay, next item is, next four items are,
We're going to
do
bundle
not
now.
have or six items actually, don't have specific write-ups, but we'll go through them quickly. The Snow and Ice Deficit Fund, $75,000, would be paid for out of fund balance, or proposed to be paid for out of fund balance. DPW Subcommittee supports this. It's a way of supplementing the snow and ice. If you recall, during our deliberations, we took money out of the snow fund with the anticipation that this would be in place and again, sort of rolls over year and not have to be beholden to a budget review every year, which, again, with the capriciousness of our snow and winters these days is a better management approach. So I will entertain a motion in a second.
So
Put the
moved.
snow and ice fund on the
Second.
warrant.
Amanda?
Chris, Suter, and Amanda, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Sick Leave Trust Fund, $100,000, again, proposed to be paid for out of fund balance. This is historically paid for out of fund balance, so it's, I think, rarely, if ever, been a tax impact. Judy?
Could somebody just explain what this is, please?
Sure, I can explain it. It's, basically, this fund is a set aside for our employees who finish either 20 years of service and depart from the town's employ or retire from the town. They're entitled to 50% of their sick leave being bought back by the town, and so this fund pays for that obligation.
Why is that?
It's been a long-standing policy of the town. It predates me
Yeah.
coming in
It's,
2005, so.
In most corporate situations, you get 100%. 50% is bad
if you,
for the employee.
if you don't do that, then
They call it sick.
they call in sick, or they somehow otherwise use that. And so what you're actually doing, if you want to think about it this way, is you're getting their labor for 50% less than you would normally get it for.
It's an incentive to not use sick leave, for sure.
Exactly.
There's
It's
some creative accounting,
Yeah.
huh, Corey?
It's incentive to use sick leave when you really need to use sick leave, not when you're kind of on the fence. And so,
Okay, I will entertain a motion to put this on the warrant.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So folks, don't go into private practice, you don't have sick leave. Yeah.
It's too late to go back in time, Judy.
Next item is Rains Barn fire alarm.
So Bob, this was funded on Monday night through ARPA funds. Through
Excellent.
the select board meeting. so
Marvelous.
That helps check that off the list.
It does.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Then the next one,
no
I
discussion.
just wanted to update the funding source on the next one is, should be taxation, the Sestercentennial Fund. Yeah, it's actually Sestercentennial. It's the
Sester?
250th anniversary of the town.
So what was it would not be paid for out of fund balance?
Correct, that'd be taxation, that one.
Why does this need to be on the warrant for $5,000?
Because it's going to be a capital reserve fund. In order to establish a capital reserve fund, you have to do it through a warrant article.
And it's a one-off.
Yeah, and this would also, this is another one of those funds that's going to straddle fiscal years.
Can do a couple of
Because
years.
we're gonna put $5,000 in it, that's the plan.
That's the seed
For
money.
2025, that's the seed money, and then there'll be more in 2026 for the actual Sestercentennial itself.
Would that be another warrant article, separate warrant article?
To appropriate into the fund, that's the only way you can appropriate into a capital reserve fund, is also to have it be a warrant article.
Why couldn't this be like $1, Russ?
$1?
Yeah, like to set up the fund and then the year that we're paying for it, we get to vote on the entire funds.
Not sure I understood the question, but to put $1 in it would.
Why 5,000 instead of 1?
Or
Because it's more seed money for the Sestercentennial celebration.
So
that the
why
town
not
is-
100,000? What are we doing?
We're just trying to put some initial funding into the article.
Why not $1?
Spreading it out, spreading it out.
This is a really tough year.
Every
So
year.
in the interest of going home,
Yeah.
I would just call it $5,000 and
Yep.
let's go with it.
Out of 20.
Well, that's the beauty of a democracy. So I will
It's not-
entertain a motion.
Not always beautiful.
We'll entertain a motion to fund $5,000 for the sesquicentennial CRF fund.
So moved.
Oh.
Oh, second. I'll be second.
Got it.
Okay.
You
John
first.
moved, Chris
The man with the
seconds.
bad back.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
One.
I'm in. I said aye.
All in? All right.
5,000, a random number, but here we go.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I don't want to take up any time, but if I may, the reason that amount of money is there, and I understand your question.
Get started.
but If grants can be obtained and you need matching money, then that money would be available. Thank you.
That's good. Better than $1. It can match $1.
Andrew's paying for the party.
You bring the beer, all right?
Yeah.
So the succession plan fund that is in the discussion in the budget book on page 21, as we mentioned at the general government meeting a few weeks ago, the executive committee has decided to defer this. Is that still the decision? And find some internal funding and planning backing for this. So it will not be either fund balance, a warrant article, or otherwise.
Excellent.
And the next item, Sportsman Club remediation, which again is in the finance book and shown on page 21 as coming out of fund balance. As I mentioned at the Public Works under capital outlay discussion, this has been deferred for further analysis. Effectively, the Sportsman Club is a lessee of town land. Since the 1950s, we've had a very detailed lease since since what, 2012?
2009.
209, okay. So there's some difference of opinion on what liabilities and all of that are, and we will be assessing that over the course of the next few months through legal counsel and internal management.
I'd be curious to see if the projection for the legal wrangling costs more than the capital outlay to clean it up.
Well, this $45,000 was actually just to update the study.
Oh, just to update the study.
Cleanup could potentially be, yeah, I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
We did have a study, I think the study was in 2009, right? No,
2007.
2007, there was a study
my
that
God.
said that there was a lead out there, but it was immobile. And the DES wanted us to dust that off and update it. So that's what the $45,000 is to dust that off, and we're pushing back.
There are aspects of that,
Well,
the
but-
history that.
Question.
Sure, Fran.
Does one
Interested in
have
having
to
a
be
legal-
a resident
formal
of
legal
Exeter to
stance.
be a member of the Sportsman's Club?
I don't know.
No.
I would. yeah,
Dawn?
I don't know.
Don has a question.
Is this
Don,
still
no.
going on?
Oh,
Without
I guess
funding,
we just
since-
want to get an answer to Frank's
Answer to my
question first.
Yeah.
Can you repeat your
You
question?
don't.
Sorry.
Okay. Did you have
Oh,
a follow-up?
does one have to be a resident of Exeter
answer is
to be
no.
a member of the Sportsman Club and use that facility?
I don't believe so.
No.
So we could have people from a lot of other towns using that facility, and we're paying for the residue.
Yes.
Or
from
from
their
other
activity.
states.
Right,
The
to
club,
contaminate
the
our
club
land.
gives us an annual report every year that indicates what percentage of the club members are Exeter residents.
Don?
This issue with the lead has been going on since 2009?
Well,
Seven.
since the 1950s. That was the shooting.
Well, it
Yeah.
depends on what your definition of issue
And
is.
nothing has been done? It's just studies?
Well,
Okay, the water's fine.
again, in fairness, the study in 2007 said that nothing had to be done because the lead was immobile. It was in a berm. I don't know whoever did the study. I don't know. I can remember a lot of
Researchers,
things, but I can't
professionals.
remember that.
NRA
It's
did.
in, I think the answer to that question is in the email that you and I exchanged.
There's a remedial action plan for the site that it was published in 2017. The town put forward some money in 2007 to do a health risk assessment exercise on the site. And then the lease was signed in 2009. In 2017, there was a remedial action plan published, and with some next steps that the town would need to take in order to meet the environmental rules that the DES has on the site and is using to regulate the site. To this point, we have not made a final determination about cost sharing and how that's going to be done. So that is the point of fact that we need to sort out in the next year to see where those liabilities lie.
And it all ties in with potential water treatment facilities as well, theoretically, at least.
Somewhat.
Another underlying issue is that they're paying $1 a year in a lease. And I find that reprehensible, but the town and the lawyers will go explore all this and we'll deal with it via that means rather than tonight.
Yeah, since we don't
Okay.
have to vote on it, I think anybody who wants to learn more can learn more on their own, for sure,
Right.
if you want to know.
Next item is page 29, the Clemson Pond dredging project. This is our combined sewer overflow discharge pond that then, under some circumstances, either evaporates or goes into the river. The tide gates are in fairly poor shape. Our report shows that just inspecting the tide gates because of their access and the age of them is about a $50,000 exercise. So this is estimated to be $500,000, and it's planned to be paid for out of excess bond proceeds from the recently completed wastewater treatment plant lagoon project. So there would be no additional rate impact to the sewer ratepayers. Anybody have any further questions? Steve is here to talk about details of interest.
I got a quick question. Sorry.
Go for it.
500,000, it just seems like such a like finger in the air number. Is this a real number or is this just?
It is, yeah. We have a quote from our consultant.
Okay, that's all I need to hear. That's fine. Just likely to.
It's sort of a wag, but the fact that it's, I mean, whatever the number is, it's going to be paid for out of money that we got, that we appropriated but didn't spend.
Understand, but as a voter, if I see a number like this and I think
Yeah, it's a rounded
flat, I
number.
might be like, well, I don't think they actually know. They just want to ask for
Right.
$500,000. Just a point of, I mean, 550 might be better.
550.
472.
472 sounds great.
All right, as chair of the sewer subcommittee, I will make a motion to put this project on the warrant.
And as a subcommittee member, I will second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item is the wastewater treatment plant flume repair. I think Mr. Zigmont said this is the new
Water Country
ride at Water Country next year.
The effluent flume, yeah.
This was a flume that was sort of carried over from the old facility. It was supposed to be repaired a few years ago. A contractor came in, actually made the problem worse. We did not pay them for it, but the project sort of languished for a couple of years until we were able to get funding to do it, which we do now, which is, again, the same excess bond proceeds from the lagoon sludge project. Subcommittee supports this project. There will be no additional rate impact. Any questions? Judy?
The contractor who made things worse, is the contractor in any way obligated to contribute to this repair?
Well, the repair needed to be done regardless. They came in, tried to do the repair, and what they didn't work. And so they removed everything that they tried to do and didn't charge us for it, or we didn't pay them. I don't know which way that went.
Didn't cost us.
It didn't cost us anything. And they basically took it back to the original form. What the coding and everything that they were using, just, it didn't work. So we had to sort of reboot and come up with a different plan
Thank you.
that hopefully will work. So I will move to place this project on the warrant.
Same, second.
Ton seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Last one of the projects is on page 35, groundwater development project. This is an ongoing, actually, hopefully the last component of the last several years. We've allocated between $500,000 and $1 million a year to find an alternative groundwater source, as the ones that we found in the early teens and culminating in the new plant in 2015 did not provide the flow that we were hoping and the capacity that we were hoping. So in order to meet the demands of the town, we have been looking for a new source, which we think that we have. And this project here will basically be the funding for completing construction or design and construction of a new wellhead facility that will tie into the groundwater treatment plant. Any specific questions? Steve's here, but the write-up sort of summarizes the previous history, and this is about year 5 or year 4 of this project.
And just to add to the project description, the pump test began yesterday on the Drinkwater Road site, so we do have some early results.
So right now, they're pumping the well at 400 gallons a minute. That'll happen over the next 3 additional days, and then at that point, they'll generate a report for DES and take it through the permitting stage. We'll recommend to them what we think that well can produce, and they'll have to evaluate that and decide if they agree with our findings.
So one of the reasons why we added money last year, even though we didn't even have a site, is that if we did get to the stage we're at now and the timing worked, that we would have excess money so that we could start the permitting and some of the engineering without having to wait until March. So with any kind of luck, this report gets completed and into DES and approved so that we can actually get a leg up on this with the monies we've had previously appropriated. So
Nice.
the planning seems to be working.
Mr. Chair, sorry.
Well, I think, we had
Go ahead, Don.
a group over here in the
Yep,
corner.
sorry.
This is down off of Drinkwater.
Correct, yes.
But the water line stops about a quarter mile down Drinkwater, so this is going to be new piping?
No, so this is going to be a raw water source, and we would directionally drill across the Exeter River and tie it into the Larry Lane water treatment plant, so.
We directionally drill under the
Yeah, I got
wetlands
you.
and under
Yep.
the river.
Having drilled under the river before, do we have a high degree of confidence we're not going to run into the same problem?
We do.
Okay.
Different soil conditions for one, shorter distance, but
Oh,
I think
really?
we've also learned some things as part of the siphons project that will incorporate into probably the bid specifications and the bid process to give the town some greater protection and, make sure that we don't run into some of the cost issues we had on that project.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm strongly in favor of this, of course. Remind me, you weren't here for it, but the groundwater treatment plant cost, Bob knows this, cost what? 5 point something?
5.5, yeah.
5.5 million, didn't it? And I don't think we spent a lot of money on wells in that whole process, correct?
We used existing wells.
We used existing wells, so we're into that whole process only, quote unquote, $5.5 million, right? I think I'm correct in saying that.
Well, we put more money into it over the years, and the plant is now coming up on
Right.
10 years old, so
Yeah.
there have
And
been
what,
some.
but roughly speaking, and what percentage of our water, when we're consuming water, how much is that plant contributing to our overall annual?
About 40% now. isn't it?
Yeah.
So a $5.5 million water plant is providing us with 40% of our water source right now, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Right, so this is why I feel so strongly about fortifying that source.
And this will-
with an additional well.
With this well, that will pretty much, I think it's double, right? We want to double our existing sources?
Almost, yes.
Almost
Yeah,
double
close to double.
what we have. So it gives us a nice little buffer, because the next big public works project we'll have in town is the surface water plant.
Exactly. of
A few
course.
years
Yeah,
down.
groundwater sources.
5 or 10
groundwater-
years down the road, right, Melissa?
Groundwater treatment plants are
Yeah.
significantly more efficient and less expensive to run than
Yeah.
surface water treatment
Yeah.
plants. So, by leaning more on our groundwater as a supply, I think it only benefits us long-term as far as
Yeah,
cost.
I mean,
goes.
it's sad that our existing wells don't produce as much water as we had hoped, I guess, or as was
Well, they are
predicted.
50 years old.
But they're ancient, and hopefully they can be remediated at some point as well. It's interesting that we're testing this new site in such a dry period. I hope the engineers are factoring that in. I'm going to throw an engineer here or there under the bus here. They seem to somehow miss the boat on some of these things.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly didn't plan for the drought or to be under these circumstances, but, we have had that discussion with our consultants, with DES as well. To put a positive spin on it, I guess, we're testing it in the worst-case scenario.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
we're going to see what the
Yeah.
impacts are, not only to this well, but to some of the
Yeah.
surrounding wells, and be able to argue that, what we see for yield is the true yield.
Yeah.
So.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Chris.
Yeah, I guess my question is, obviously, in my view, needs to be done, and I'm glad we're doing it and fortifying what we have. My concern is the look forward. We have an appetite for development in this town, and it's further strain on the water resources. How forward-looking is this, especially when we talk about things like, drought cycles, which are increasing in erratic frequency? How future-looking are we looking with the planning department matching up with our groundwater source?
We've had that discussion quite a bit actually this year
Yes.
because of it. Yeah, so.
We've been meeting regularly to talk about those issues.
And what did you do? What did you discover?
That with this new source, we will have capacity to support some growth. So it's all gonna, we'll have to look at what the full build-out of the town is and what areas we're developing in. But, water capacity and supply is always going to have to be a part of the conversation.
And when we relook at our master plan, when that does come on to the books, we'll be talking about this issue again, for sure.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? On behalf of the subcommittee, I will move that we put this groundwater source development to the tune of a $6.8 million bond on the warrant.
I'll second. Swan.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, on to vehicles. Start on page 18. This was notified in the book as the Great Bay permit, but in reality, it's mostly the street sweeper. 385,000 of the 395, yes, it will go towards, it's a requirement of our stormwater discharge permit, the MS4 permit, but it is the street sweeper and an enhanced sweeping program that we are, as part of our permit, are required to put in place and to follow.
I love the street sweeper. I had a block party, like literally the next day, like the kids had water balloons and stuff. Next day, street sweeper came, clean.
It's like throw all your trash out.
So you're the guy.
That's what I was saying. I did kind of let the kids pick it up, but they're kids. I mean, you can only
So we
work
could throw styrofoam out in the street and
Yeah,
just buy
really.
a new street sweeper.
No problem.
Instead of spending $120,000, we spend a $395.
Way to go. Whole rusty bike.
Okay, sort of self-explanatory, the, be a 5-year bond, an average of $85,000 a year. Will be tax impacts, would not start until FY '26 for the payments.
Yeah, there's also 20% loan forgiveness on this project as well.
I forgot about that, you're right.
Hey, little sweetener.
Up to 20%.
Up to 20%, and we usually are pretty good about getting those. So I will entertain a motion to put this on the warrant.
So moved.
A second? Amanda seconds.
Does it float? Do we know if it floats? Can we...
Duck boat? Duck boat action? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Fire utility truck number 1 replacement on page 52.
We're jumping around now.
So this is a 15-year-old, over 15-year-old vehicle that's being replaced. Did you look into this?
Absolutely.
Your subcommittee?
Yeah, this
Give
is
us
a
a
vehicle
rundown?
that's been sitting outside, and so rust is a big issue for it. This is the one that was rebuilt the past year. The bed was rebuilt, rusted parts were replaced. It's not going to pass inspection this next year, and it has the old polluting diesel engine.
Any further questions?
Sounds like 2 more years out of this thing.
Kick the can. The anticipation by the executive committee is to pay for this out of fund balance. Is that still the decision?
Yes.
Can I clarify what fund balance that is? I just don't understand how that works.
General fund.
General fund balance. So it's the,
It's not like they have a separate one the way some.
no, they do not. It's part of the general.
I have a procedural question
Sure.
about that. How does that fit into your vehicle lease program, and why are you doing it this way for this truck rather than, what you've previously outlined for us?
Well, each year when we examine the budget and we go through the budget process, we try to set aside a certain amount of fund balance for projects that might be available in the general fund surplus. So the price tag on this particular vehicle is $71,355, and that's below the threshold of what we would normally recommend for a lease purchase.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
that's why it sits where it sits.
Thank you.
Yeah, as you know, you set a tax rate, and sometimes you make more money than you think, and sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
So if we have excess funds, we return those to the taxpayers, so they don't have to pay twice.
As subcommittee chair, I'd like to put this item on the warrant.
Judy moves. Do I hear a
Second.
second? I'm sorry, who was that?
Second, me.
Thank you, Dave. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Page 62, the ADA van. If you recall, last week at the meeting, there was some discussion about possibly getting a used vehicle, maybe getting some more information on the estimated price, et cetera, et cetera. So why don't we start with Greg? Why don't you tell us what you found from our questions of last week?
Yeah, Bob, we immediately went back. These are not a type of vehicle you buy off of a car dealership. They just don't. So there's a few vendors throughout New England, one being out of Londonderry called Mobile One. They have various lots all over the country, so they have a vast majority of inventory. But getting a quote today is like getting a snapshot. They turn these over. So to give you some examples, a 2003 and Mercedes, I know it sounds, Sprinter van with a capacity of 12 with two wheelchairs is 89, sorry, that one is 98,000. Another 2023 Mercedes Sprinter van was 101. It all depends on the mileage as well. You also have a Starcraft, which is a Ford chassis. That came in, I'll give you a snapshot. That came in at 118, but that was brand new. So it's hard to determine, and what we would work with the management team and our DPW is to get our most bang for our buck is find the one that has the least mileage for the cheapest price. So that's, but used. Obviously, once you actually put any mileage on it, there's depreciation in any vehicle. So, and of course, we could go older, but when you look at the CIP for vehicle replacements, there's a scoring chart. So it would be counterintuitive of ourselves to buy such an older vehicle that suddenly Steve is our budget's being burdened to have them repair it all the time. So, and it's really the importance of what the vehicle is going to be used for. Obviously, relocating to 10 Hampton Road will create some challenges, and we're going to utilize this to help our seniors, not only those in wheelchairs that may have just difficulty getting upstairs, being able to transport them up to 10 Hampton Road, so they're social and emotional of being able to socialize with others. And that's our biggest concept of what using this, and increase the quality of life. That's ever since COVID, that's one thing that we've always seen is the isolation. And this is an opportunity for us to assist those that can't get into our van normally, and being able to enjoy our resources.
Great. Tom, did you have something?
Yeah, I had my hands up, but I think I was misunderstanding something here relative to the page numbers. I'm just going off of memory here. It seems like we're always talking about Parks and Rec vans. So either I've been on the committee too long, or my memory is failing, or something. But as we were talking, I was looking at pages 60 and 61, and this one is related to page 62. So if you could just enlighten me a little bit as to, I mean, it sounds like on the other pages we have a pretty good-looking van. So what am I missing here?
Accessibility.
This is the ADA accessibility issue.
Exactly.
Okay. And that's what's missing on the other van?
Correct.
Okay.
The other van is great. Don't get me wrong. We sell out our programs and our trips in a matter of minutes. It's a
Got it.
nice van that you can get up. We paid for that solely out of the rec revolving fund, went before
Okay.
the prices of vans went astronomical.
Got it.
And this would actually be funded half and half. This
Okay,
would
so
be
this
half.
is purely about the ADA accessibility that we
Correct.
currently don't have for the department.
Correct.
Thank you for clarifying.
Fran?
Yeah, I have been on a couple of your trips on the current van, and it is very difficult to get into, especially if you're going into the back seats. I have a bad knee. I don't qualify for ADA, but I could attest the fact that the current van is not particularly easy to deal with, I guess. My question is, what's going to happen to the current van once you get the new
We're
one?
gonna keep it as well.
So
gonna
we're not only doing ADA here, we're giving you 2 vans.
Correct.
Why?
Because there's some, all right, for instance, trips, or if we want to get a large contingent of people up to 10 Hampton Road, it could utilize 2 trips. We, for instance, our seniors love our trips, and that's one thing, getting them out, again, being socially inactive or activated. We go to Cabbage Island. Anyone been to Cabbage Island?
I've always wanted.
It's Bar Harbor. It's beautiful.
Is that part of the flume, right?
In a matter of a
Smells a
day,
little
we
better.
fill up 2 trips, but we only have 1 van. So obviously, we have to do multiple days. If we had 2 vans, now we're sending staff to bring them. It's cheaper than a bus because buses are astronomical, and that's something we can't really pay for
Great.
or
Thanks.
charge.
Chris?
When Liz and I discussed it with you at the meeting, we had asked if there had been any specific request from Exeter residents who are wheelchair-bound, or however you want to put it. And you said there hadn't been, and then we asked you to get some data to poll our, people that do the trips and things like that to see, has anybody ever reached out to say, I want to go on a trip, but do you have an ADA accessible van?
Absolutely. We've had many requests, but
But we didn't, but I guess my question is, I haven't seen anything.
yeah.
That's
But we don't
gave
have
numbers.
specific. Go ahead.
I
Melissa.
can't speak to numbers, but as the person that used to do a bunch of the programs, I would physically have to help some of the seniors in and out of the van because the very first step is very high. And so I may not have taken a phone call for a wheelchair. Actually, that's a lie. I have taken a phone call for a wheelchair. But this isn't just for wheelchair accessibility, it's actually to help lift them up into the van. We have people that use walkers that can't do steps. The step is abnormally high to get into the van. We have a lot of trips and programs, so it's not just trips outside of Exeter. It could be getting folks down to a bone building class or something like that. We have a lot of programs that have enough people to fill 2 vans, and right now our staff drive them. So that's why we wouldn't want to give up one. When we put in the lift, we do lose a few seats, but there's been many times I've had to help some very nice people in and out of that van.
Right. Yeah, I don't mean to sound like a jerk, but the discussion's not about having 2 vans. It's just about getting an ADA van. And I know there's things that you can do. Again, I'm just going about this budgetarily. If it's a tall step, there's, a block. You could, a block to help people get step up. You do it with kids, you get the little block in front of the sink so they can reach up and wash their hands. We asked for some data specifically from Exeter residents asking that had reached out and said, yes, we would do the trips if you had an ADA van. And we haven't seen any data. So because I haven't seen any specific data, I'm going to have to vote no on this for now.
So something that's really important to understand about the disability community is that they have been disenfranchised for decades, and people know that they're disenfranchised and they're used to it, and they don't get up and advocate and say, hey, I want to go on your trip, I want to go on your trip, I want to go on your trip, I want to go on your trip.
Right.
So there are people, you can't put the onus on the disabled person.
I'm not. I'm putting it
You
on.
are.
No,
you are because
no,
let me
Parks and
finish.
Rec. Parks and Rec. I asked Parks and Rec to do a survey.
But you can't punish the population.
Can I finish?
Yeah, please.
Yes. Go ahead.
Parks and Rec doesn't get the phone call if the disabled person knows or has been disenfranchised their whole life to not call. So you are putting the onus on the disabled people to make phone calls that are going to be rejected, and then Parks and Rec doesn't have the data. Do not interrupt me.
Mr. Chair.
Chris.
Yeah, I just think, just like when we talk about complete streets and serving the entire public, I can't believe that we could vote for a 250-year birthday party and marching bands on Halloween and Christmas and whenever else we run them, but we can't fund $20,000 a year to serve all of our citizens. So I would be inclined to vote yes.
I need to defend myself. I'm going to say it one more time to be clear. I didn't ask to see how many people have called the rec department. I don't expect people that, I'm asking the rec department, I asked that they would reach out to the community. I asked the rec department if the rec department would reach out to the community to see if there was a desire, a need and a desire. That is all. I did not say how many people have called you.
You don't need to reach out to the community because the community speaks about this all the time, and Greg is on there seeing the community speak about this. It's been since 1990 that this has been a law, and it's just, there's no onus on the rec department to say there are wheelchair users in this town. That's absolutely bonkers.
I can just, if I can interject quickly, Bob. Sure. RPC, when we were going, and Fran helped, the number one thing was transportation, and accessible transportation was in that, being able to move around the town. So getting them to our programs or on our trips, that is an important part. But then just this past summer, our senior council, who is a subset of our rec advisory board, who meets almost monthly, came and endorsed this and asked the select board to consider putting this on our CIP because it was so needed.
And Greg, how many responses were there on the RPC survey for older adults?
Over 300 responses.
I thought there were 300 or 400 responses.
And Fran was one of them that helped collect those.
We just voted in to spend money to make various adjustments all over town for aid to meet ADA requirements. Isn't this just the same thing?
Yeah, a little bit different. Don?
In support of Amanda and her point is, I've worked with Northeast Passage for a few years now in racket sports and biking sports. And a program that we run locally here, a few years ago we had 2 people, adaptive racket sport, show up. This year we end up with about 10 people show up. So it's a lot of word of mouth, and they say, well, you could go play here. And it's, I found that over the past couple of years, the numbers have increased. And even the program that we run at the rec department, at the courts, the first summer, we had a couple, but then now we have Special Olympics coming as well as adaptive, and we don't have a need for the van, but I'm wholeheartedly for it.
Liz?
So I'm on the subcommittee. I would say that the information, I would have liked to have seen more specific information in the subcommittee meeting. I think that was something that was perhaps needed. So what came across to me is that the van would be sort of specifically for seniors and mostly for folks who are already participating. So that was sort of the pitch for a van, is to support those who are already participating in events and so forth. And so that was the discussion. So if it's a larger sort of program's not the right word, but if the van is going to be used for a perhaps larger audience versus those who are already participating. So remember we talked about Riverwoods as having vehicles that are used already, and so there was that conversation too. So just want to clarify what the subcommittee heard and learned about from this, because I think that is a little bit different than what's being discussed here tonight.
Right.
Judy?
A different point that it's a townwide concern. when you travel in Europe, all these vehicles are electric. What would enable the town to make the leap for a vehicle like this to be electric?
About $230,000 to $250,000 for a mini bus to be electric.
Wow.
Yeah, they're very expensive.
Andrew?
I just had one question, just generally, like, we have the ADA fund that's funded at $25,000. I guess, I wonder why we're not just adding money to that and then letting Doug, who's sort of managing all our ADA issues, have a bigger pot to play with, and if it makes sense to put it into the rec fund to lease at $20,000 a year. I'm seeing a lot of, in the budgets, things adding up in different places, and then the pile gets really obscure in terms of like not knowing what the total amount is for a specific thing.
I will say the reason we're not doing that is because the cost of the van is $120,000, and
you can't just do it year by year.
Do it in 1 year with an appropriation like that. This would be crossing our threshold toward a lease purchase.
No, okay. It's just a procedural thing.
Yeah,
Okay,
and a lease
thanks.
purchase, again, a lease purchase has to be a warrant article on its own, has to stand alone.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Ton?
Yeah, it's late. I think you said it.
Who are you referring to, please?
I'm sorry.
Liz.
Greg?
Liz, thank you, Liz.
Liz?
I told you it's late.
Just for the record, I just need to know who you're referring to.
The description of, well, first of all, I clearly demonstrated, A, that it's late in the evening, and B, that.
I just want to know when you say late, is it Greg?
Although it's not that late, I mean, we've gone to 11:30, 12 before in the firehouse.
Okay,
and I'm all for
it's
that.
getting later, discussing it's
Yeah.
getting later.
But, I think my earlier confusion about the vans, I think illustrates something, which is that we have a very nice van driving around town, okay? You could make a pretty good argument that maybe we weren't thinking about ADA enough back a few years ago, and I think we're making good efforts. Another point I'm going to make is that I love this committee because it's not personal. We're talking about funding and numbers, and, we make our votes, and we take, we go home with that.
But funding is people, like that.
Absolutely, and funding, and ultimately funding does reflect our values and what we choose to put our money in. But just want to make that point. And the last one is that this particular item, the description of it has changed in a fairly short period of time. And I think that's what Liz actually highlighted, which was that we were looking at alternative ways to accomplish this. And now tonight, we're asked to decide on apparently a new $120,000 van on the fly. So unless I'm missing something, that's what I'm picking up on.
Chris?
No.
Oh, this is Chris.
Oh, sorry. That Chris can go.
I apologize for not knowing how people, feel in the certain communities. I'm not aware of it. All I want to make sure is it's very, very clear without being vilified or attacked, is that we asked Greg to do a specific survey of Exeter residents. And he didn't come back to us with any data. And therefore, Liz and I said that due to that fact, without having any data of any numbers that we requested, that we were going to have to say that we weren't able to support it. If Liz has changed her mind since then, I don't know. But that is what this was based on, a specific request for numbers.
Mr. Chair, I have a sheet that says the subcommittee supports it. That's what my sheet says. Okay.
Sorry.
That was my
And the
mistake.
information that we're hearing from Melissa and Greg is different.
I understand. Now I understand. Now I understand that part of it.
Well, there's one covariant here that we haven't considered. If you want numbers, or if we want numbers based on how many people who need an ADA van and sign up or come forward and say, do you have one? No, we don't. I'm sorry, I'm not going to go on your trip. The trips are expensive. I mean, some of them are quite expensive. And so that can be a deterrent for people in general from signing up on, And it has nothing to do with how they access the van or don't. It has to do with other factors. So, if you're going to come up with numbers, I think you're going to have to kind of get around some of these, other issues that enter into the picture that would cloud your numbers.
Russ, how many people live in Exeter in total, roughly? I mean, since the last census, what do we think we're at?
16,000.
And how many ADA vans do we have for 16,000 people right now?
We don't have an ADA fund.
Oh, so we have no ADA vans,
in our
okay.
fleet.
Well, that makes my vote pretty easy. We
The
should-
town of Exeter doesn't Meals on Wheels that function, just to be
Yeah.
transparent. Meals
Yeah.
on Wheels has one.
Okay.
Fully.
Yeah, so we're starting, so I think we need a 100% increase at least, in my opinion, but anyway.
Period.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that the rec fund, the parks fund, and the ADA fund don't have the combined bandwidth to be able to absorb something like this and do it. Just talking about creative solutions to obviously a fairly sensitive topic.
The rec revolving fund could not absorb it 100%. The park improvement, I don't think, kind of.
I'm talking about together, combined resources.
No, it's not, it's earmarked to come from impact fees, revolving funds, and general funds.
The ADA fund is minimal already. And it's, I'm just, my opinion is it's barely serving.
We shouldn't be voting
its
while we're
intended
flying
purpose.
blind here. We should have enough information to make informed votes.
7 years ago.
Anything else? Okay. So that was my mistake on the subcommittee supports, purely my mistake. I put this sheet together. It was not discussed in detail in the subcommittee report, and this is based on conversations that I misinterpreted. So that was on me. I will, at this point, entertain somebody else have something? Oh, sorry, Anna.
It's okay. I'm just feeling like we might all want the same end goal here. I'm just curious if we could, we're not going to reconvene a subcommittee or even this committee, but if we were to do a reset, where would we, from where would we start? I mean, it feels like Greg is maybe diving in with a reset tonight, but Liz and Chris aren't part of that loop. And I mean, I feel like in principle, I support an ADA van for the town. We don't have one.
So do I. Right, yes, right. So the
information. So where does that put us?
So do I.
I feel like we're doing a disservice to the town by ending up in the situation where we are now.
Special transportation.
And I understand every point of view I've heard, and it's unfortunate at best that we ended up where we are, but by not being able to resolve this in a way that results in having an ADA van, we're doing a disservice to the community.
Yeah.
And if that means, well, period.
So if we stay a little later, can we just do a brief reset?
Can I
Hear
ask
from
a
Greg?
favor? I don't mean to interrupt. We did a survey in 2003, which I was.
2000
In 2003.
23.
What, I'm sorry. This is late. I apologize. In 2023, when I was working Park and Rec.
Yeah.
Some of the questions specifically go to, do seniors want accessible transportation? And we have over 200 results that say that is the number one thing they're looking for.
And I apologize because I had forgotten about this survey, but.
So that is sufficient data for me to say yes to a vote to approve the van.
Yeah, I think we should move this.
Again, the reason for the subcommittees is to gather initial data. So maybe going forward, I would suggest listening to their questions and taking their concerns seriously, because we as a committee obviously rely very heavily on what they say, and we would maybe have avoided some situations.
Sure.
Just as a going forward
Absolutely.
suggestion. Did you have anything else to add data-wise? Or was it?
We have a lot of data here. I can go down there.
Again, the subcommittee asked for that.
Yeah.
So can I make a motion that we put this on the warrant as it is?
Second.
Liz moves, Judy seconds.
Discussion.
Further discussion. Tom?
Can you, in your many years on this committee, remind me whether or not we've had budget items that have been hashed out at the last minute, and it sucks. And do you recall whether we've ever deferred a decision as a BRC, i.e. not made a decision? Does it have to be in favor or against? I mean, this is a terrible thing to be against, but the way, because it's a very worthy project.
Logistically, it doesn't work because the
Pardon
select board, logistically, it doesn't work because the select board will have a meeting in early December
Yeah.
to basically
can we-
accept our budget.
Yeah,
And
can we
so
punt
we
this
just
to
don't.
the select board? I guess is what I'm, to
I
put
would
it
not,
bluntly.
I would not support that vote.
Okay, well,
The
that's
punt-
why
and-
I'm
and
asking,
My
because-
friend over here would not want me to do that either. so.
Okay, but I'm
We-
asking
we've
it
been
just
voted
very
in to do
transparently, because
a
I
job.
think this is a terrible place to be. Of course I support accessibility. Who doesn't? I mean, it's just terrible, but to have
Yeah.
it come out in the
To-
process
Anna
this
asked for
way at
reset,
this
and here's
time
my
is
reset.
really upsetting.
Anna has asked for reset, and here's my reset. Liz and Chris asked for some data. It wasn't forthcoming. It was forthcoming tonight, and that should be enough for us to make a decision.
If I was
It
on the
should have
plan-
come a week and a half ago, and we would have avoided a lot of this. So
in
we
my
all
years-
learned some lessons here.
In my years on the planning board, you're going to say, what the hell's he talking about? In my years on the planning board, there are many times when things were presented at the last minute that I wish we would have just rejected the applications or sent it back for reconsideration.
So you can reject
We
this.
didn't do that enough, and I
We
think,
can do whatever we would like, but we
Yeah.
are
If you
voting
vote
on
no,
it
you're
tonight.
rejecting it.
and I don't want to reject.
I understand your position. The mechanism for rejecting it that you desire is to vote no.
Yeah, we're not punting it. It's going to be decided tonight. We just lost our swing vote because for
Yeah.
whatever reason.
It's
So
very
we are
sad.
voting on it tonight.
Yeah, it's very sad.
It's been moved and seconded. By show of hands, all those in favor of putting this on the warrant, ADA van to the tune of $120,000 with a 5-year bond.
Right.
9. All opposed?
I'm an abstain.
No, okay. Thank you. 9-4, 1 abstention.
I don't know.
1 walkout.
This should have been the easiest one.
Okay. Thank you. Page 64, truck 33 replacement. Well, the replacement is not a specific dump truck. Truck 33 is. The proposed truck will be a more versatile, multifunctional truck that will be smaller, more fuel efficient, and more in tune with some of the smaller jobs that we do without having a big truck rumbling around town, but still being able to get the job done. We have deferred this as a committee 2 years in a row. I've looked at the truck, it's in pretty tough shape. And there's a question of whether it'll pass inspection. They probably can fix it to pass inspection, but it's got over 5,500 hours on it, which for a dump truck is a lot.
Just point of information, the difference between the project cost is 160,000 here, and on the list is 36,272.
36,000 is the FY25 impact. The note reads 160,000 total, and that column there is just the FY25 impact.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, we're carrying 40 in the budget, so whatever is in the book has
Okay.
been revised.
Okay. So I would move to add this truck 33 to the warrant.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? None, thank you. And the last item, page 68, the second sidewalk tractor. The first one was replaced last year? Last year, huh? 2 years ago. As anyone knows who drives around Exeter, these tractors are used almost constantly. In wintertime, and, you know, if Exonians like one thing, it's plowed road, sidewalks, so.
Sidewalks in particular.
Sidewalks in particular. So this is a very old piece of equipment. The write-up says increasingly difficult to procure parts. Our maintenance guy, Jeff Beck, says that's being kind. It's basically impossible to get parts without us fabricating our own.
I was about to say, we can buy a $500,000 CNC machine and build our own parts.
Yeah, exactly. So this is much needed. We've kicked the can down the road on this for many, many years, and it's the department feels it's time to get new equipment.
I move that we approve it.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second. Swan.
Further discussion?
Yeah, I lived in the city of Evanston, Illinois for 6 years, and it's your responsibility to shovel the walkway in front of your house. That the sidewalks don't cover the whole town. I don't think the town should be paying for the plowing of the sidewalks unless they're on town property. And I think I would vote no against this, and I'd rather see some more shovels out there from homeowners.
So interesting.
Yeah, this is for town ways, public ways.
Okay.
Downtown, like not in front of people's town hall.
Okay, so the discussion before that wasn't accurate, I would guess.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Well, now I want some clarification on that. I mean, if I live on a side street with a sidewalk on it, which I don't, my street does not have a sidewalk. Are you saying that the town does not plow that sidewalk?
Town is.
We focus primarily on the downtown area in the
main
roads.
arterials?
If time allows, and we have the staff, then we will branch out into subdivisions and neighborhoods.
I'm with
So
you, Chris, on the side streets.
Primary focus is main.
So I have no sidewalk. I would really like to have a better vehicle for keeping the sidewalks in town clear. My mother-in-law is becoming increasingly mobility challenged, and the clearer those sidewalks are and the faster they're cleared, the more that our residents can use the town property, town hall, all that.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people walk in town, not necessarily in front of their own house, but High Street's a great example. I mean, people are out on High Street all the time, and I think it's important to have the sidewalks be safe.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And the noses, I walk from Pickpocket all the way into town and back, and if it's not a sidewalk, that puts me in the road.
Yeah.
So let's approve this.
Anything further? Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
I wish the select board contrary luck in, from a meta perspective, we've been approving increased budgets and all these warrant articles while people are looking at increased assessments and.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I also, and thank you to everybody who's been involved in the process for getting me on it. I also feel like there's things that we're still not paying for that we need to get paid for. It's the work that you all have done for years is amazing.
Okay. Last meeting of the year, official BRC meeting. Thank you, everyone, for their service. I also would like to thank the executive committee, Russ, Melissa, and Corey, for really meeting with me and fine-tuning some of the, or clarifying some of the requests, and then being here as support and backup throughout the whole process. And thank you to the select board. Nancy, I think you were here for every single meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dan and Nico, very regular attendees, and we really appreciate your support. That's that.
keep oral tradition. I just sit here and I let the stories wash
Just
over.
wash right over.
Yeah, a million stories.
So just before we leave, the continued schedule is sometime either the 2nd or the 9th. I don't know which, if you guys have set a meeting, the 9th.
December 9th.
So the 9th will be a presentation of our budget by me to the select board. Anyone who wants to come can support me. That would be great. And then there'll be mid-January, probably I think the 21st is the public hearing on the budget, the official public hearing. There'll be the deliberative session on February 1st, and then March voting on the 11th for the budget. So those are the milestones, and would urge everyone to support our efforts over the last few months.
There's another milestone. I had a meeting with Corey earlier today, and let's remember where we started. We still have 3 contracts outstanding out there. So we've just done the whole budget, and we still have to wait the results of the 3 contracts. That will substantially change these numbers when all is said and done. A little sobering final comment there.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the Budget Recommendations Committee for the year.
So moved.
Second? All those in favor? Signify by saying aye. Thank you all.
Work well done.
Sure. I'll do that.
What a bad way to end. That was
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.